Yo, what's going on, guys? Hopefully, you guys are doing well on this Thursday night, man. Pretty good little football game. Thought the Buccaneers put up a pretty good fight, and the Bills. I don't know, man. I thought it would be the San Francisco 49ers versus the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl, but honestly, it's still probably looking like the Chiefs versus the Eagles all over again. Look to be more complete, and they're not really having hiccups, right? They're just rolling over. There's a lot of derivative news when it comes down to the sport of boxing, right? Obviously, tomorrow, man, this cough just fucking will not go away. Obviously, tomorrow, Amanda Serrano is going to be fighting Danila Ramos. The live ended kind of abruptly yesterday, but just to kind of go back to it a little bit and answer Ma Fox's questions and requests, I think Danila has a chance. I mean, this is kind of like uncharted territory, even for Amanda Serrano. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she already does like 12, 15 rounds of sparring that are 3 minutes apiece. But at her age, close to 40 years old, knowing how many fights that she has, she's been having, of late, stamina issues. You know what I'm saying? She throws a lot of punches, but she does run, like she gasses out. It's natural. She's always pressing forward. And I was watching a little bit of highlights, especially Danila versus Carvajal. And I thought Danila, she has a good little jab. She fights tall. She has a good, nice little right hand over the top. But I don't know, man. This is really uncharted territory for women, right? That are typically accustomed to going 10 rounds, 2 minutes a pop. Now they're going 12 rounds, 3 minutes a pop. So I don't know. Maybe if Danila can withstand the high pressure, fight tall, throw her ones and twos that she likes to throw. She likes to throw a lot of 2-1 and 1-2-1 combinations. I think she's got a shot. Again, this is uncharted territory for women, but I would still say that Amanda should win, and she should win by KO. One of the beautiful things about 12 rounds and 3 minutes apiece is you usually get knockouts in those fights because fatigue starts to soar in after 2 minutes. You see a lot of mental mistakes happening to the male fighters. And that's one of the reasons why female fights don't really end up in knockouts, because they're short rounds. And if you do get buzzed, most fighters can survive, give or take 30 seconds, right? Especially the women that aren't really powerful punchers. Even look at Clarissa Shields, right? She throws a lot of punches. She throws a lot of haymakers, but she can't get women out of here. Has she had two extra rounds for 12-round fights and another minute, I believe the knockouts would come. So I believe Amanda should win by KO over Danila. But again, we just never know. They're setting the standard. Again, they're fighting for respect. They're fighting for equality. And this isn't women fighting anymore. It's just boxing. So take that for what it's worth. But I do see, Amanda Serrano winning by KO is just one of the things that is going to happen. I got to use the restroom, but hopefully Speed can look it down and hold it down on his own. Where's your profile pic at, man? Real quick, do a little mic check.
Good day to you, the homie Ricky. Where is my profile pic? Uh, you know what? Put yourself on mute. Let me try this again. I do need this profile pic, so I'm gonna hop off and try and relog on again. It's likely some kind of connectivity issue, but let me try that again. Just put yourself on mute. I'll hold it down while you go defecate or do whatever it is that you're gonna do, sir.
First and foremost, put yourself a profile picture, then I'll go on mute. Don't tell me what to do, man. Nice.
Okay, here we go.
Wait, you logged out, bro? What happened? I know you're going to change your profile pic, but I don't think you need to log out, do you? Nah, man. So it's going to be a pretty interesting, again, going back, there's a lot of derivative news. Derrick James wants to talk about the rematch with Errol and Bud Crawford happening at 154. He won't look dehydrated, whatever that means. I didn't think Errol looked dehydrated. I just thought that he fucking wasn't on Bud Crawford's level. I mean, there it is. There it is, Speed. There it is. Jorge Linares, el Golden
Mm-hmm.
Boy. Like, check. Hey, hold
Mm-hmm.
on. I gotta use pressure, man.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, everybody, I hope you are having a wonderful day. Good even fall to one and all. This is your co-host, Warp Speed, and it's been a little while. It's been a little while, but there's been a few things going on, a few rumblings here and there in the sport of boxing that both the homie Ricky and I figured were interesting enough to try to entertain you all with these notions of ours regarding this beloved sport. And yeah, we hope to enlighten you with some tidbits of information that perhaps have not made the news or have been overlooked, or maybe they are the news du jour, but yet maybe you just haven't heard them displayed and presented to you in a respectable manner, because we do know that most of these these YouTube channels dedicated to the sport of boxing, they're mostly always biased. For the most part, you have those Hispanic oriented biased channels. You'll have channels that are dedicated to Mexicans. You'll have channels dedicated to African American fighters. You'll have channels dedicated to British fighters, Eastern European fighters, and you can tell their preference. You can tell their proclivities, the type of words that they use to describe the opponents of the people that they represent. Mostly all the time, they're represented because they share similar cultural practices or national orientation. But nonetheless, in this broadcast of ours, in the Homie Ricky podcast, we try to take a very neutral, unbiased stance. Why? Well, because we all, ourselves at least, all three of us, which includes our interlocutor, the homie Ricky, your co-host, Warp Speed, which is moi, and Drew. We are involved in the sport personally. We may be of American nationality with Mexican descendancy, uh, and to some extent, mutts from other little cultures and nationalities here and there. But nonetheless, that does not mean we have to look at the world with a certain persuasion. We have been fighters ourselves. We have family that are currently fighters. We train fighters. So we deal with a lot of people from all parts of the world, and we respect them all, because if they could provide guidance, teach us something new, or get taught something by us, you can rest assured that we will respect them, irrespective of their national origin, the color of their skin, or their philosophical differences to ours. So, with that being said, we wanted to address the career of one Jorge Linares, El Niño de Oro, the Venezuelan three-time multi-belt champion holder. He fought and became a champion at 135, 130, 126. The man who was so good that the Japanese decided to take him over to Japan to have him work with their pugilists, to fight their pugilist, and made him a national hero, a man from Venezuela who became Japanese national because of how much they appreciated this man's beautiful fighting style, and especially his courage. His courage, and the one thing that stood out with him in his career, in particular, was how offensive this man is. This man was about the action. Nary a fight where he did not put up or shut up. That man threw punches and bunches, beautiful combinations, always got the job done. And when he didn't, it was still a very exciting fight. He started to falter at the end of his career, and the reason why we are addressing his career now is because a couple of days ago, in what I consider to be an anticlimactic notification of the news, the man decided to retire after fighting Jack El Gato Caterral, an undefeated fighter who drew, or maybe he lost that fight, but he is more known for the fight that he had about a year and a half to 2 years ago now against Josh Taylor, undisputed fighter at 140. They fought last Saturday in what I consider mm, a high stakes game of poker or chess, but it wasn't too particularly action packed. And it wasn't that Jorge Linares necessarily took a lot of damage. He just looked like the old fighter. Maybe lost a step here and there. Jack had a raw, fresher, uh, coming off of wins in the highlights of knowing that he had a great performance against an undisputed fighter, whereas Jorge Linares had come up to 140, having lost 3 consecutive fights at 135, and his only prior outing before at 140 to test himself was against Cesar Cano, if I'm not mistaken, that's his last name, where he got knocked out, if I'm not mistaken, the first, maybe second round. So this man retired. Now, there are fighters that we in the sport of boxing see grow up, and we monitor their careers because of how fascinating they are. And we develop a fondness and an appreciation of those fighters, so that when the day comes that they retire, it is almost a lamentable day. It is almost a heartbreak, especially the way that his career ended. It ended with 4 consecutive losses. Yes, arguably to the man who should be undisputed, Jack Caterral, to up-and-comers at 135, who've never attained the championship belt in their life. But he lost in unanimous decision form and also by knockout. Now, one could say that this man should have retired 2 fights ago, when he lost 2 in a row. One of those fights, if I'm not mistaken, would have been to our current former undisputed 135 pounder, Devin the Dream Haney. But he ended up losing a couple right after that. One by knockout to Akhmadulayev, if I'm not mistaken. 135. He fought another name right after that, unanimous decision loss. So maybe then you could have said, okay, maybe you should retire right there, Jorge. But the thing is, with fighters of this caliber, fighters that have put in everything in the ring, you let them walk away when they're ready. We do not meddle. We do not intervene. We do not give these men of valor and war any counsel. They heed their own counsel. They will walk in their steps, take the path that they want. And mind you, the path that Jorge Linares took was always the path of most resistance. We're not going to tell him what to do. No one is going to insinuate he should walk away from the sport. He will do so when he wants to, just like men like Manny Pacquiao, men like Juan Manuel Marquez, men like Oscar de la Hoya, the legends. Nobody tells them what to do. They do it when they want to. And in such fashion, Jorge Linares, in an anticlimactic way, basically through a twit, is that what they call it? Twit or an X, whatever it's called. He announced his retirement after maybe 20 years in the sport. Now, The homie Ricky and I, we're going to present to you what we consider to be what we call a deep dive. A deep dive is where we start going through news reports, we start going through a fighter's career, their box rec. We run through the names, we look at the fights, we look at the victories, we look at the losses. We take their words and we quote them so that we could be honest and forthcoming and especially truthful to what these men wanted to tell us as they were fighting, and now that they've stopped to fight in the square ring. So, without further ado, and I'm not too sure if the homie Ricky is ready for it, I would just like to draw my attention, draw his attention to his retirement. Well, it wasn't a retirement, homie Ricky. Were you there after the fight of Jorge Linares with Jack Catterall when a few hours afterwards the Zone and Matchroom decided to um in like a 3 minute video announce or interview, better yet, Jorge Linares, and they asked him about retirement? Did you watch that short video?
No, I didn't, man. I didn't even watch the fight versus Jack Catterall like in live. I just watched highlights of it, or I was hearing somebody talk about it. I don't even like during the live. I didn't even see the fight, so I completely am oblivious to that retirement video.
Okay. Well, maybe we can start there, homie Ricky, because the reason why I found this announcement anticlimactic is because he had an opportunity to address his audience, his fanatics. And when they asked him what was next, he had the opportunity, fresh off of the fight, to say he was done. Now, I understand that he's a man of consideration, so he's been there. The sport of violence, of organized violence, is nothing too surprising for him, right? He does not have to walk around with his heart in his sleeve because he's done that too much. He's gonna think about what he wants to say, and once he's thought about it, he's going to say it. But they asked him what was next, and he did not confirm that it was over for him, though there was the insinuation. Then, because there was that insinuation, the homie Ricky, I left it at that, because there was no affirmation that he was done and over with this sport. The next following day, just a few news reporters uh, presented his X or Twit or Twix or whatever, where he says that after, I don't know, 22 years in the sport or whatever, he's retiring. But if you don't follow him or you don't have X or whatever, you're not going to hear about it. And the news kept going because it's a big fight week for Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou, and the 12 round 3 minute fight between Mr. Amanda Serrano and Delina Ramos. We have so many news that covered up the lamentable announcement that one of the most exciting offensive fighters in recent decades had decided to hang up the gloves, unlace his shoes, and walk off into the sunset. Now, if you bring that up, homie Ricky, there's going to be on the Zone, YouTube, or Matchroom. This is a 3 minute clip, and he talks about it. And I stuck with that. I just thought, okay, one of these days, or we'll never know. I mean, Linares hadn't fought in about a year before he took on this Jack Catterall fight, or maybe 8 months, somewhere around there. But he decided to just announce this. And if you listen to that, the homie Ricky, there is no confirmation that he's walking away. So when I heard about it, I really thought it was fake. I thought maybe they were misquoting him, or maybe I misheard something when he said it. But no, he officially announced his retirement in a very um, detached way. I don't know, homie Ricky. What do you think about Linares having walked away from the sport?
I don't know, man. I thought I'm always a firm believer, especially when kind of like Mikey Garcia and Jorge Linares, like similar kind of careers, right? I always feel like you should walk away with a W. I don't like seeing fighters that have had amazing moments, have had amazing careers, and then walk away on a losing note. So even though he lost to Jack Catterall, it's like, bro, you still went with a prime fighter, an undefeated fighter. You still went the distance with him. Same thing with Mikey and Sandra Martin. Like, so I know maybe they lack motivation or maybe they don't have it, but go fight, I don't know, a tune-up. Go fight a farewell fight. Don't fight a young, obscure, undefeated fighter and just go collect the W, then have like a retirement home, like a retirement banner, a retirement outro video. I'm not too sure. So hopefully Jorge Linares doesn't walk away with a loss, because I think he's like 4 fights to your point. I think you said that he was on a 4 or 5 losing streak. So hopefully they go fight somebody like in the top 250 and just knock him out and then just walk away on a happy note. That's the way I look at it with Jorge Linares. But I don't know. I can't say if he's going to walk away from it or not. I know that he was trying to pursue the Rolly Romero fight, and he was kind of on his ass, like in the social media, calling him out, making videos, kind of stalking him a little bit, trying to antagonize Rolly. But Rolly was just kind of downplaying it. And then Jorge eventually ended up fighting Jack Catterall. And, well, I don't know about you, but I felt like Jorge was going to lose that fight. I thought he was going to lose that fight by knockout. But it just kind of lets you know how mediocre Jack could be, knowing that he's not really an offensive juggernaut fighter like Jorge Linares. And if Jorge isn't going to press the action, then Jack's counter-punching ability and pot-shotting ability, it's really not going to, it's going to lead to a relatively mediocre fight. And that's kind of what we got. At least that's what I saw from the highlights. Again, I didn't see the whole 36 minutes of action, so I can't really speak on it. But at least reading from the comments and seeing other people's is kind of like flow to it, I don't think I missed much, What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, so I agree. From the moment that fight was signed, you know how there's some fights that when they're signed, they upset you, right? Like for example, let me see. When Rolly Romero uh, was announced that Rolly Romero was gonna fight Ismael Barroso, right? It's one of those fights that even though Rolly Romero has never done anything in the sport, when they announced that he's gonna fight an unheralded, unknown fighter, we complain and gripe about it, right? Because you're like, look at this guy. He got a soft touch. He got a soft touch to win for a vacant belt, and it turned out that it wasn't the case, right? This Mo Barroso likely got robbed by a very, very corruptible premature stoppage, in my opinion. Nonetheless, whatever, it happened. He became the champ. But even though that fighter was gonna fight that guy, people griped about it. Now, the reason people griped about that fight is because they really didn't know who Ismael Barroso was. When this fight between Jack El Gato Catterall and Jorge Linares was announced, you would expect some people to gripe about the fight, because Jack Catterall is a young, undefeated fighter who arguably should be undisputed. In the eyes of many, he beat Josh Taylor, and he's fighting a guy who's on a 3-fight streak at that moment, and whose his only prior outing at 140 led to a first, maybe second, but I believe it was first round knockout against a unheralded, unaccomplished Pablo Cesar Cano, right, at 140. Now, nobody said nothing about that fight. I don't remember anybody complaining about that fight. Why? Because you always gave Jorge Linares a shot. I thought he was going to lose. I didn't think that he was going to get knocked out. But I did think that he was on a losing streak. I knew that his history at 140 made him exposed. It made his chin very exposed to power punching. So I thought Jack Catterall might be offensive enough to harm the man, or be offensive enough to bring out the offensive mastery of Jorge Linares and make that an exciting fight. Now, the thing is this, homie Ricky. I did watch the fight. Jorge Linares did not press the action. Jorge Linares was not the offensive juggernaut that he was. But that's because Jack Catterall is very tricky. He's very mobile. It became a high caliber boxing display, almost like a sparring session between two very skilled men. But Jack Catterall should have beaten the nearly 40-year-old man, if he's not 40 already, who had 3 consecutive losses. And at most, if I'm not mistaken, around the 11th round or so, maybe 9th to the 11th, he hits him with a 2, nice and clean to Linares, and he rocks him. And Linares walks all the way to the ring, to the ropes, and he puts a hand on the rope to sustain himself. Mind you, it's like 3 or 4 steps back, holds himself for a bit. He shows up, and that's when you knew again, Jack Catterall, and the few punches that it really did hit Linares in, that it was going to have damaging concussive effect. It proved that yes, Jack Catterall is a natural boxer, not exciting. But if you bring the action, he's going to counter you all day. But he sure didn't put up the best display of pugilism, or at least what he should have done. He should have blown out Jorge Linares. But I agree with you, the homie Ricky. It would have been amazing that if Jorge Linares would have came out with a dub at the end.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
I think it's a few, maybe that looks to be somewhere around there, the homie Ricky. Let me see, maybe here. He starts turning to his right here. He throws something. Look. Let's see this. Yeah, it was basically that, homie Ricky. Just basically pawing and pawing. On Jorge Linares and throw a 2 after that, but was not a very.
Yeah, I know. I mean, look, I mean, Jack Catterall is kind of like a poor man's version of Erislandy Lara. Like, if you press the action towards him, kind of like Jarrett Hurd did with Erislandy Lara, like Canelo versus Lara, he's going to paw shot you with a 1-2, right? They're natural counter punchers. But when you start boxing with them, or, you know, implement the same game plan that they do, just weight, posture, then you're going to get a boring fight, right? Or I guess a very technical fight.
Mm-hmm.
You're not really going to get your bang, you know, for your buck. You're not really going to have a memorable night, unless one of them gets caught and makes a mistake. But if you're going to see like Austin Trout at Erislandy Lara, Lara dropped Austin Trout twice, but it was a very technical fight between two southpaws. Same thing with Jack Catterall. But if you put or the game plan for Jorge was to come forward and go guns blazing, yeah, we're gonna get a few knockdowns. Jorge has always had superb skills, bro. Like, there's no denying his counterpunching ability, and there's no denying his combination ability. Like, when he lets his hands go, the sequence of punches that he throws, amazing. One of the best athletic, gifted fighters with speed and power. He's dynamic with both hands. But I always felt like, well, we know that he lacks punch resistance, sometimes maybe a little bit of heart. Like, when I look at the Lomachenko fight, right? That was probably his best fight in his career. Sure, maybe the Antonio DeMarco was a really good fight. He was pretty much winning the whole fight. Then he got cut and his nose got busted. The Scott Quigg and the Luke Campbell fights, they were pretty good as well, but his best moment was his loss versus Lomachenko. And he was up in that fight, and he dropped Lomachenko, one of the only fighters to drop Lomachenko. And I just felt like, bro, you made it to the 10th round. And I know though that body punch fucking hurt, but you can win this fucking fight. And I think that's what like le faltó al Jorge Linares, that extra layer of heart, that extra layer of just balls, bro. Like he had a breaking point.
Whoa.
Right? When you see like Orlando Salido, he knew like I'm up. And he could have easily gone down and stayed down in the 12th round when Lomachenko was blitzing him with a barrage of punches and dropped him, but he still got up, survived, and he won the fucking fight. Jorge could have done the same thing. Like Jorge, not to sound like a dick or anything, but like I said, he has a breaking point. And had he known how to survive, hug, like Devin Haney hugged him when he, Linares landed that right hand or that left hook punch combination sequence at the end of the 10th round. What did Devin Haney do? He went on to hug Linares for 6 minutes. Had Linares hugged Lomachenko the way Devin hugged him, probably Linares wins that fucking fight. But that's what I'm talking about, that heart or that survival instinct. I know everybody criticizes and lambasts Devin Haney for, oh man, look how much he's hugging Linares. But Linares, he should have learned how to fucking do a wrestling move, fight off a clinch and just throw a bunch of punches and just drop Devin, DDT or suplex him, stiff arm him, create some separation. Because if Linares were to try to do what Devin did to him to Lomachenko, had he hugged him for that 11th and 12th round, Lomachenko is fucking like, get off me. He's fighting off the clinch. Mm-hmm. And Linares didn't, he doesn't have that, I don't know, bro. I guess that's smart when the going is either going his way or that intellect to survive and to do anything possible to fucking win that fight. He doesn't have that in him. And when I look at his last four losses on his resume, right, to Zaur Abdullayev, I think that fight was in Russia.
Zaur Abdullayev, there you go.
He was winning that fight, and then he gets caught. I'm not gonna say he quit because I know that he's tired, but again, he has that breaking point, and he's missing that like orgullo or that extra layer that I'm willing to die in the ring to basically become a Hall of Famer, to be, remembered and like boxing heaven with the great. Because, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Linares is a Hall of Famer?
Wow. Is he a Hall of Famer? Wow, that's I think it's too early. I think it's too early to ask that question. Look, before
6 fights, 47 victories. He's got a 62% knockout ratio. He's a 4-time divisional champion. Is he a Hall of Famer?
So first off, before we hop on to these crazy old grand questions, for all those of our listeners that are not Spanish speaking or bilingual, the word that he used, the term that the homie Ricky used, which is orgullo, means pride. So he's
they know what it means.
He's trying to ask whether or not Jorge Linares has enough pride to dig in deep and do everything it takes to come up with the victory. And now he's asking me if I think that Jorge Linares is a Hall of Famer. Now, I think this is the question that I wanted to address with you, the homie Ricky, in this deep dive. I didn't want to just give you an answer and say, hey, this is my opinion on things. I want to delve into the man's career and let the man's career speak for itself, right? Like, we can't just boil down the fights that he's had to a number of victories. That's not the way that it should work. Like, the man has 47 victories, you said, 9 defeats. So he has almost 60 fights under his resume. I don't think a Hall of Fame career necessarily is counted on how many fights an individual has. I think it has to do with a combination of uh, the caliber of fighters that he's taken, the belts that he's attained, how he's attained those belts, and mostly if he's come through at the biggest of moments when he needed to come through and basically force himself into the chambers of greatness, the Hall of Fame. That's what I really want to get into, the homie Ricky. And the reason why I brought this topic up as a subject, as a possible subject that we should address in this here live, homie Ricky, is because I'm not too sure if you listen to Steve Kim and Mario Lopez, you know, from Saved by the Bell, and Steve Kim, who's a very notable, renowned boxing writer. Basically, they have this show, if I'm not mistaken, it's called the Three Knockdown Rule or something to that effect, or Knockdown Rule or whatever. And they were talking about Jorge Linares. Now, they have this clip that's running around. It's a very short clip. I think it's on YouTube or who knows what other influencer sites. But nonetheless, Mario Lopez and Steve Kim, they say that he is a man that is a good fighter, that did good things, but he was not a great fighter. Now, I started to think about that, right? Because I mean, for the longest of time, I've been watching fights of this man for what seems like forever, and he's always put up great fights against very notable names. I know that he's gotten 3 belts, but I wanted to really consider why didn't Mario Lopez and Steve Kim consider him a great fighter? And of course, that brings up the question of whether or not you have to be a great fighter to be a Hall of Famer. And of course, we know the answer to that, homie Ricky, which is, do you have to be a great fighter to make it to the Hall of Fame, homie Ricky? Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
No.
You got
the answer is no.
No. Yeah, because look, the Hall of Fame, to be a great fighter, look at Mickey Ward and Arturo Gatti. They're known for giving you the greatest fights you can ever possibly see, with a whole lot of heart, with a whole lot of just like rock 'em, sock 'em, incredible moments where you're like, oh, what the fuck? How can they take such punches? So yeah, they're not the greatest, because you saw how easily Floyd Mayweather was able to fucking pick apart Arturo Gatti. But when you put those two dudes together, bro, they made movies out of them, right? The Fighter with Christian Bale and fucking that Boston kid, Dirk Diggler. Fuck, what's his name? Marky Sparks, or what the fuck is his name? Mark Wahlberg. My bad. There you go. So like, yeah, there's many metrics in boxing to be a Hall of Famer. One could be a great fighter. One can have a great trilogy, like Rafael Marquez versus Israel Vasquez. 6 fights that they had, especially the first 2, bro, that alone is legendary. Go watch those little dudes at 112, 18 pounds duke it out, and you're like, fuck. Bro. Like, the dude lost his vision, Israel Vasquez. That's Hall of Fame worthy. You know
Yeah.
So, again, you got to understand your impact. I guess that's the best way to describe
this. Yes, exactly.
Impact.
The impact.
When I look at Jorge Linares' impact, right, in the sport of boxing, his impact is pretty much known as you knocking down Lomachenko. Not knocking out Loma, not beating Loma, hurting Devin Haney and knocking down Lomachenko. That's his impact that he's left in the sport of boxing. Because other than that, honestly, he's just another guy. Another guy who is successful, who is a winner. I mean, he's won like 80% of his fights. 60% of them are by knockdowns, right? So he's just another guy that's a winner. But his impact in the sport of boxing is just those 2 feats that I just described. Him knocking down Lomachenko and him hurting and stunning Devin Haney. Now, had he finished Lomachenko, knocked him out, or had he defeated Loma, had he knocked out and defeated Devin Haney, then we're not just talking about another guy. We're talking about a dude whose his impact would have lived over the standing of time, right? We talk about boxing heaven. We're talking about sitting ringside next to Manny Pacquiao, Oscar de la Hoya, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali, Jorge Linares falls way short of that because of his impact.
Yeah.
It will, in a sense, when people look at it 50 years from now, 20 years from now, after the nuclear war, they're going to be like, man, he just knocked down Lomachenko and hurt Devin Haney.
Yeah. So I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it when you said that to make it to the Hall of Fame, you have to be a great fighter. But not. But I was, of course, going to be a jerk
Oh,
and
you have to
say
have
that you don't have to.
your
Uh,
impact. Going back to impact.
there you go. That's the thing. The impact. Because I was going to say you do not have to be a great fighter to make it into the Hall of Fame. Why? Because Sylvester Stallone. Better yet, the character that
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone played, which is Rocky Balboa, a fictional character, made it into the Hall of Fame.
But
So
that's what
we know that you don't have to be a fighter. You don't even have to be a great fighter. You
But
can
that's
just have an impact. The
the
impact
impact
that you
of the
leave in this.
Rocky movies, the Creed movies, that brings a lot of eyes and attention. And when you think
Yes.
about boxing, you think about, hey man, have you seen Rocky? Have you seen Raging Bull? Have you seen, Million Dollar Baby? Have you seen The Fighter? You think about those films that, again, impact the sport of
Yeah.
boxing.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's the impact. It's the impact. So my question then, we should look at that whether or not Jorge Linares ever left a lasting impact in the sport. And of course, you and I know that there's been multi divisional champions. Uh, we
many of
know
them.
that there's been, yeah, and we know that there's multi divisional champions that have had moments. And and I proposed the homie Ricky. Okay? So first, can you look to see if you can find Steve Kim, Mario Lopez tribute to Jorge Linares, and see if there's like a short. It should just be a short. Maybe it's on. I don't know. Which one is it? What are those things that do like little short videos? They sent me. I don't know, TikTok or WhatsApp or something like that. Maybe Instagram. I don't know, those little ones that they make little,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah. I'm not gonna do that on my computer, man. I have to do that on my phone or some shit.
Oh, okay. See if you can find it though, because I want you to see if you can just, I don't know, put it to the mic or see if we can hear what they say, because I think it's very important that we first understand the question that I wanted to present to not only you but to our listeners that are out there. The question of is is Jorge Linares uh, a great fighter? Was he a great fighter or not? Um, Not so much the impact, because I think maybe these smaller fighters, these weight classes, they really don't let themselves out too much fan recognition, especially a fighter that had a long career in fighting in Asian countries. Because that's where he was from. But you know with Jorge Linares, right? I'm not too sure if you're gonna look for it or not, homie Ricky.
Yeah, I tried looking for it on the YouTube. There's not a YouTube short on it, so it's probably on their Instagram. And yeah, I mean, I can log on into my computer, but you know, I
No,
can't.
but do you have a phone that you can? Do you have a phone that you can just like bump it loud enough?
Yeah, but I mean, you can just paraphrase it, bro. You don't have to log in, man.
No,
All you
no, I
have
don't like paraphrasing. I like people to
kind
speak
of.
their own. I don't like to paraphrase because I'm very bad with my memory. It's like 30 seconds if I'm not mistaken.
Let me see. Let's see. Let's say.
Hmm.
Is a great fighter with a very good career. Yes. And I go, what's his name? He goes, I think it's Linares or something, but Rudy Hernandez is his trainer or he's his chaperone. 15 minutes later, Rudy Hernandez walks in. I said, Rudy, who's this kid you're bringing? Oh, Jorge Linares. He's like 19, 20 years old. He goes, Steve, he's dynamic. So I go over to Freddie. And Dynamic's a great word. And I said, Freddie, do you mind if I watch sparring? He said, yeah, sure. Go ahead, stick around. And all I'm going to say is this, and you're right, nobody wins sparring. And the one thing about Manny, he never bullied sparring partners. No. He was always a better real fighter than gym fighter, which honestly, what you want to do. But you knew early on that this was a gifted kid. It was almost ballet-like. That's what that. It was elegant. It was beautiful. It was aesthetically pleasing. And I believe that he's one of the most fantastically gifted boxer punchers I've ever seen. But what made it fun was he was also gifted and also cursed. He was this close from greatness because what held him back? Punch resistance. Can you imagine if he had like a Chavez like we're talking all-time great. All-time great. That's what I'm saying. He's a great fighter with a very...
That was it right there.
See, that's the thing. I would never have been able to paraphrase or even remember all the particulars that they were addressing right there than having allowed them to speak for themselves. This would be Mr. Mario Lopez, a great friend of our beloved promoter Oscar de la Hoya, and former child star and Saved by the Bell, if I'm not mistaken, a Saturday morning teenage show that I grew up on, and Steve Kim, a famous, well-liked reporter of all things boxing. Now, they talk about a lot of things, about his potential from the moment that they first seen him, about what he became, which was a true, one of the best, according to them, boxer punchers, and about his skill being an offensive fighter, even proving himself against Manny Pacquiao at an early age, at 19 or 20 years of age at that moment, but also about the curse, which was his punch resistance. Now, the homie Ricky, you have a much sharper mind than I do. Your skills of recollection are incredible. They're world renowned. And of course, mine are world renowned for how inferior my short term, middle term, and long term memorization is, and about what a fool I am. We know how famous of a fool I am, but apparently, Mr. Jorge Niño de Oro Linares, he has 9 losses. Now, we do know that the last 4 fights of his are some of those losses, and that includes Devin Haney. Then we go back prior to that, and we have Lomachenko. Then we go back, and we have what was his name? Can you bring up the box rec, homie Ricky?
So after Lomachenko, obviously
yes.
the last, I don't know, 4 years, the last 4 years for Jorge Linares' career have not been a good one. You know, he's lost to Jack Catterall. He's lost to, you know, that guy Abduliev, Zora, Hamazarian, Devin Haney. Those are 4. He got knocked out by Pablo Cesar Cano 3 times, and he got stopped on the 4th. Vasily Lomachenko. And then he went on like almost a decade, right, of
victories,
just wins and knockouts. But then he lost to Sergio Thompson and Antonio DeMarco.
Yeah.
So that's really the one that, like, after DeMarco, like, you know, that cut on his nose really fucked up his momentum. And then he went on after Sergio Thompson, he went on a winning streak, and he rejuvenated his career by fighting basically UK fighters, right? Beating the likes of, you know, undefeated Luke Campbell, or maybe a one-loss Luke Campbell, you know, Anthony Corolla a few times, Kevin Mitchell. That's pretty much how he got his momentum back. But before we even go to, you know, memory lane and things of that nature, I want to kind of focus on Mario Lopez and Steve Kim.
Yeah.
Steve Kim talked about how he was granted access to watch the sparring in the Freddie Roach wildcard gym. And he was talking about how nobody really wins in sparring. And what kind of went over people's heads is he was talking about Jorge Linares getting the best out of Manny Pacquiao. What he was saying right there was Manny Pacquiao usually goes kind of soft on his opponents in sparring. But Mario Lopez was like, man, if he was giving a Chavez chin, he would have been an all-time great. The reason Jorge Linares was able to dominate, you can almost not dominate, but give Manny Pacquiao very good work and beat Pacquiao in sparring, is because that headgear. We talked about, they concluded that little short video by saying, you know, he was blessed and he was cursed of not having good punch resistance. That extra layer of headgear protecting his face, giving him that extra length, is kind of like Amir Khan. Amir Khan was also dynamic, incredible hand speed. You saw how he was putting hands on Canelo. You saw how he was able to land a left hook to the liver on Marcos Maidana. Amir Khan would give, and people obviously know, he was laying hands and on Manny Pacquiao because of that headgear. Take off that headgear, lack of punch resistance. Very skillful, very dynamic, but again, don't have a chin. Same thing.
Yeah.
I would almost put Linares and Amir Khan of fighters that could have been great had they had punch resistance. They have heart. They always get up for the most part, but they have breaking points. Linares can get out-willed. Amir Khan, glass jaw.
Yeah. So before before I want to be able to address that clip in a sequence. First they talk about how great he looked when it was when Steve Kim seen Jorge Linares sparring Manny Pacquiao. I also want to hop into, you know, the fact that he was a very offensive fighter. And thirdly, then we'll talk about the punch resistance, which of course you draw conclusions to say that his career, or at least his punch resistance, or I guess maybe we could say lack thereof, is very semblant of something a la the Amir Khan. I want to go in that order. Now, I don't know if you know this, the homie Ricky. You interpreted Steve Kim's assessment of Jorge Linares sparring Manny Pacquiao as so obviously an outing that no one wins in, because, like I've always said, sparring is work. But you interpreted it as Steve Kim insinuating that Jorge Linares was getting the best of Manny Pacquiao. I didn't know how to best interpret that, because it could also lend itself, at least in the way that I heard it, also could lend itself out to say, look, when I saw Jorge Linares sparring Manny Pacquiao, there it is. I was going to tell you that there is footage. I was going to say, when I saw that Linares was sparring Manny Pacquiao, I know that you don't win these things, but he looked very competitive. In other words, saying Manny Pacquiao got the best of Jorge Linares, because there is no way to say that he won. But look, that actually does look like Jorge Linares was getting the best of Manny Pacquiao.
Right here. This is Amir Khan.
Oh, but there is Jorge Linares Manny Pacquiao sparring. You know that. So we don't have to hop into Amir Khan. We can actually just watch Jorge Linares and Manny Pacquiao.
Let's check it out. Jorge Linares.
Yeah, because I interpreted the other way, homie Ricky. I interpreted as Steve Kim saying, look, I know that Manny Pacquiao was getting the best of him, but because we know that you don't win sparring, we also have to admit that he looked very, very good against Manny Pacquiao. So this is where we're going to be proven who is right, you or I. So this is young Jorge Linares, obviously before the stubble, and that is the Southpaw legend, Pinoy Manny Pacquiao.
See, this is what I was talking about earlier, that how we going and quoting Ryan Garcia, how to reimagine the sport of boxing. Access. Fights like this, long access to sparring, not juxtaposed, composition of hitting the speed bag and sparring. We need to see the full length of, because again, there's fighters that we talk about being dynamic or could have been great. Amir Khan, Jorge Linares are those fighters that are, and Lenny Zapavinga, their toughness or their speed, given that extra layer of headgear. Like, imagine sparring Ruslan Provodnikov. the guy that gave Timothy Bradley a very tough fight. So this footage is not really footage; it's more like pictures.
Yeah, this wasn't it. This wasn't it, homie Ricky.
So
That's not the one that I
basically what I'm
watched.
saying is this: imagine seeing Ruslan Provodnikov sparring fights and their wars. Same thing with Lenny Zapavinga. Zapavinga was the guy that fought Alex Cholo Salcedo, right? Amazing fight. These guys can have a cult following and a cult audience by just being that dude that's amazing, quote unquote, in practice. Because that's what sparring is, right? It's practice. It's when football players are, going with their scout team, right? Those are players that are really good and they were really good in college, but not good enough to make an NFL roster or on the cusp of. Maybe an injury happens and boom, they fill in that slot or they get bumped up. It's like AAA in baseball. They're professionals. They're getting paid for playing baseball, but they're not there yet, or they're still in the development phase. That's what basically sparring is.
Yeah, but I mean, it is practice for me, Ricky. But I tell you, before practice, I say it's work, right?
Well,
It's work.
absolutely. I mean,
You're working on something.
paid, but you got to
But
look at it like this: guys like Amir Khan, and when we reimagine the sport of boxing, it starts with sparring, giving people access, not just being or having discretion and be like, oh man, here, hey guys, all cameras off, just enjoy it. No, man, the world needs to see behind the curtain. Behind
yeah, and so again, homie Ricky, if you're gonna
sparring.
if you're gonna try to assess a fighter's potential based off sparring, it's gonna be it's not gonna be a good assessment ever. Why? Because you're supposed to go in there to work. You're not supposed to go 100%, right? Because you don't want to take any kind of damage inside of a fight, because a lot of the times the reason you're sparring is to prepare for a fight. One of the things that just happened most recently, barely last week in fact, is that what was it, Joshua Buatsi was about to take on a fighter, and then 3 days before the fighter that Joshua Buatsi was going to be fighting against, he sustained an injury in practice, right? Now, that fight had to be canceled. This was going to be a global event because boxer, let me cook. I don't even know why you're interrupting. Let me cook. Boxer, the promotional company based in Britain, was had just most recently signed a deal with NBC Universal to broadcast British soil boxing in the Grand United States of America. Now, what a disappointment it was to build up a fight, to announce that they're going to be having fights stateside from around the world and NBC Universal, and then the main event fight falls through the cracks because some guy got injured in sparring. Now, you do not go a hundo in sparring. This is practice. And now, how do I know? Well, let me tell you. My son attends. I'm going to explain to you why I never judge a fighter based off their sparring. My son attends a boxing gym that is the toughest one in the town that I live in. Okay, it's notorious for the fact that these sparring sessions are not really sparring sessions. They're basically unsanctioned amateur boxing fights to the death. Now, the nearby gyms stopped coming around because our fighters don't know nothing else besides going 100%. The strict regiment and training, the way that they train, there's no other way to translate that in the softer tone in the square ring, because they go 100%. Right? It's one of the best conditioning gyms here in this whole region. These guys never get tired. They punch very, very hard. They go with a lot of volume. And the other boxing gyms around town and the nearby cities, they despise coming over here because their fighters are going to be put through the ringer. Okay. Now, it's not necessary.
I get it.
Wait up 1 second. I'm still going on it. And
15 minutes.
these guys are working with skills. These guys are trying to work on different types of popping their jab, moving their feet. And guess what? Our fighters don't allow them to because they're not here. They don't know anything else besides going 100% to war. Now, that's just one example. Now, another example that I have for you is that my son, whenever he spars, he obviously, like everybody, they spar with the sparring gear, a helmet designed for sparring, which differs slightly from the ones that you step into the actual fight itself. Now, uh, most recently, he started to take on more of a challenging sparring. They decided to put my son up with fighters, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 pounds heavier than him, without headgear, to try to learn how to best be a defensive fighter and to take punches from bigger fighters. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it was like 15, 20 pounds. Maybe not 30. 30 seems too unsafe. Nonetheless, my son came back and he said, "Dad," because he's also talking about going pro soon enough. He goes, "Dad, I sparred without headgear today against a fighter that was much bigger." And I know the kid. He's an adult. He's a big 25-year-old adult who's got muscles, and he used to do Muay Thai. So he's already used to fighting. And he's like about 20 pounds heavier than my son. And he goes, "Dad," and I go, "How did he feel?" And he said, "I felt great. My headgear wasn't bothering me. I could move my head. I could throw different punches. I had to be extra cautious from the punches that were getting here. When he did land, they rocked me much more, but I was also able to move better. With the kind of limitations that you have when you have headgear on, bars you from performing without it. So I felt much better without it. Now, you try to put up somebody. You just said it yourself, in fact, homie Ricky. I don't think it just blew right over your head, but you're substantiating my argument. You said Jorge Linares looked great in sparring. Now, when he stepped up into pros without the protection of his headgear, what happens? His punch resistant is in full display. See, what I'm trying to tell you, the homie Ricky, sparring is supposed to be work. In your words, practice. You're not supposed to take sparring as a measure of the capacity of a fighter. Simple as that.
All right. I understood. I understand what you're saying. But sparring is about one of the best assessments on how you can critique your fighter, whether A, he has it in him, his punch resistance, his level of fatigueness, and to see the level of heart that he has. You can measure all that based on sparring. Hard, quality sparring. So for instance, give you one example. Bud Crawford, when he sparred Timothy Bradley. Timothy Bradley, after he sparred Bud Crawford, he told him, "Bro, you're not a sparring partner. You have the fucking makings of an all-time great." That inspired and gave Bud Crawford the utmost confidence. And guess what? Timothy Bradley, and I'm pretty sure the innocent bystanders that witnessed and were privy behind the scenes, they realized this guy's the fucking goods. How? Based off sparring. Even though Jorge Linares, as we now know, when he tires out in the 10th, 11th championship rounds and he gets knocked out, that's his breaking point. But if he were to have hard sparring, which I'm sure he does, and if he were to, as he's getting tired, take off the headgear and find what's his boiling point, what's his tipping point, he would find out. So like to your point, like you said, my son took off the headgear and he was fighting guys 15, 10 pounds bigger than him, Muay Thai fighters. He realized, shit, Dad, I can do this. You know why he did? He took off his headgear. You're supposed to spar without headgear at times. Sure, you risk getting cut. Hell, you risk getting cut and having a broken nose even with protective gear on, even with 16, 18-ounce gloves. That's just the nature of the hurt business. right? Hell, I can be playing AAA baseball for the San Jose Giants, right? The minor league team for the San Francisco Giants. And as I'm pitching 3 rounds, I can have Tommy John surgery and blow out my fucking rotator cuff. A ball can be lined back to me and bounce off my fucking head. That's just sports. So your boxer example of Joshua Buatsi getting injured, bro, that's the nature of the game. Sometimes injuries happen. It is what it is. Sometimes freak injuries happen in 2 rounds and you snap your Achilles heel. That's just any common fucking sport, whether it's tennis and you overextend and you do the fucking splits and you nutcracker yourself. That shit happens. It happens. Some people have longevity, others have a short time. So I don't want to give out too many examples, but sparring is one of the only metrics, and if not the best metric, to find out whether the fighter that you have at hand that you've been training is the goods or not. It's the only metric. Because to your point, it's unsafe to take off the headgear and have street fights. It's unsafe to spar without headgear. You risk cuts. You risk your fighter getting knocked out. You risk injury, right? But to your point about your local gym being about the hustling nature, it's good that that gym and those fighters come to fight because each philosophy, each trainer, each gym operation has a different metric of coaching. Others are defensively sound. If you go to a Freddie Roach wildcard gym down in LA, you know you're going to meet with some fucking bangers. If you go up north to San Francisco and you're training with Andre Ward and Virgil Hunter, you know it's going to be on footwork, jabs, defense. If you go to Crunk Gym in Detroit, you know it's going to be fucking lights out boxing. You go to Ohio and Cleveland, it's also a very good athletic, Olympic center. So each philosophy.
Allow me to ask you something, Omi Ricky, because I can prove that that what you're saying is faulty in your reasoning.
Look,
can you tell you said something? You said that sparring is supposed to be without headgear at times. Of course, we know that. Can you tell me, because you're a big proponent of trying to have these fighters maximize their promotion ability and their exposure by their sparring sessions. Okay, then that would mean that anybody that isn't a good sparring partner but is a good fighter without the helmet, it would not work out for you. You probably wouldn't give a chance. Well, wait up. You would not give those guys a chance. Why? Because you're focusing a lot on how they look on sparring. Let me ask you something. Can you tell me what sparring sessions without headgear can you hearken to say this is what I'm talking about? Because I can show you, I can tell you
access to that stuff.
I can show you, I can tell you that some of the most notable sparring sessions that have made the rounds all include headgear, protective gear.
Of course, I'm not that's not what I'm arguing. What I am saying is this: if you have an amateur fighter who's on the cusp of turning pro, you know what? He should have times where he's sparring without headgear. Not like you shouldn't put up your amateur fighter on the cusp of turning pro, go fucking 25 rounds headgearless with Ruben Villa. No, he's gonna fucking end up getting fucked up. But I'm saying, like, there's gonna be moments where he should have maybe 1 round or 2 rounds of sparring with headgear off, just so he can know what it feels like to get hit.
Of course they do that, but you're not gonna ever have that kind of sparring session. Never, homie Ricky.
I'll give you an example. No, that's not what we were discussing.
You'll never have that kind of level of activity without the proper protection, because that will make for a very short-lived boxing career. You would basically destroy a lot of these fighters. You would destroy a lot of these fighters' career before they even began, homie Ricky. You put some of these some of these kids from these nearby gyms without headgear into our gym. I'm sorry, they'll never come back. They won't ever. They might never come back to the sport.
Listen, that wasn't the argument, though.
Homie Ricky.
The argument was.
I understand. I understand.
No, because you went on to a completely different point. The main point was sparring, which I called practice, is the best metric if not the closest metric of measuring a fighter's heart, skill, determination, being dynamic, being tough, right? That's only
And
through
I tell
sparring.
you, that's not true.
You can be the best fucking fighter or boxer or athlete that hits the speed bag and has these epic drum rolls, boom, 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 having the epic hand speed. That doesn't translate to you knowing how to fight. You can jump up the best. That's not the best metric. You can hit the heavy bag and have the loudest thud in the boxing gym.
There was a fighter by the name of Spadafora.
How good of a fighter you are, because
There was a fighter. There was a fighter by the name of last name Sparadora. I can't remember his first name. Sparadora, an Italian American fighter who more famously is known for having sparred
Mayweather. Yeah.
Mayweather. You talk to people that knew. I think his name was Joey Sparadora. That knew about him.
Steve or something. I don't know.
He was a legend. They said he was the next big one. Didn't translate to the professional career. Okay, he had good success. He got good success, but it didn't translate. There's people that are great amateurs, but they come to the professionals and their careers don't pan out. Right. So what I'm trying to say, homie Ricky, sparring is sparring. Is sparring. Work is work is work.
Once
okay.
you're welcome onto the show, of course. But I'm saying,
but of course, but I know what you're saying. There are ways to, and there are ways to know who is good, but you'll never be able to just use that.
49-1.
Now, going back, right? The other thing was that he had what Steve Kim mentioned, which was the curse of Jorge Linares, which was that he his punch resistance. Now, homie Ricky, he has Jorge Linares has 9 losses, 4 in a row, 1 of those by knockout, and then I think 6 in total. 6 in total was by knockout. And when I think about punch resistance, right, there's different ways to look at punch resistance. Like the first thing is, can he resist a punch? Right, that's like the most simple way of just imagining the question. And when I think about something like that, when I think about does a fighter have punch resistance, I almost imagine the extremest of cases, right, where, like, for example, a guy is fighting, winning all the rounds, the other guy really can't tag him, and the one time that he tags him, the guy is knocked out, lights out, knocked out, ain't getting up, good night. And I know you have a better memory than I do. I know that. But can you remember how his losses ended by knockout? What fights would like exemplify the fact that he was intolerant to a proper punch?
Probably the best one was Pablo Cesar Cano.
Okay. Can you explain why?
Well, you would have to go watch the fight, man.
We do that.
You got YouTube. You can watch the fight.
Well, this is a deep dive. The whole purpose is to look at that. Because, so if you can't do that, can you explain it? I'm sure that you can explain why that fight. Because if I'm not mistaken, the fight only lasted, what, 1 round, 2 rounds, maybe at most?
1 round.
Okay, so I don't know if you can necessarily take that and say that's the best example of him being a fighter that is intolerant to a punch, right? Because for one, he had gone up in weight. Secondly, maybe he wasn't even warming up right. I mean, it's the first round. Maybe he's barely thinking. He has no indication of how.
Let me just show you. Did you see that? He got hit by a left hook, but it wasn't even the greatest left hook. It was a short left hook. I gotta slow this down. Hold on.
Yeah, that was pretty quick.
That's what I'm saying. That's how you know a homie's chinny.
No.
take that.
Oh, wow, that was one of those ghost punches. Did you see that? That's just wow.
So look, you have to understand that was the first knockdown or one of
Mhm.
a couple of that happened in that round.
Yeah,
But he was already hurt throughout the whole round,
yeah.
right? And there must have been harder punches that landed, but that left hook, it wasn't even, it was a short three, but he was using it as momentum. It was a 1-3 looking to shoot the hard two. That three was just like a check, and his whole head snapped. Same thing like Amir Khan. It's like the best way I can describe it. Amir Khan can be winning the fight. I'm not going to give you the Canelo Alvarez example because that was a well-placed shot. That was he was setting up Khan the whole fucking fight because he kept throwing one force to the body, marking Amir Khan, hoping to drop that left hand, and he came over the top with the four.
Hmm.
Amir Khan versus Brady's Prescott. All right. He got hit with a good shot, and his whole legs, he folded like a musical chair. His whole body got contorted, something that I've never seen before. But if you look at his frame, Amir Khan's frame, very skinny. And you can see like he doesn't hell, I don't even think he eats meat. He's Muslim. Probably don't eat meat or pork or any of that stuff. So he doesn't really have a lot of fat, right? Having fat gives you layer of I don't know, stability and I don't know, strength. I mean, fuck, dude, you're harnessing animal meat in you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna be heavy. You're gonna be heavy-handed. If you look at a lot of Argentinians, their diet is heavy on meats, and you see how heavy-handed they are, right? When you look at a lot of Muslims, they're very athletic, they're very fast, but they're not really big knockout artists, and they're kind of chinny, right? Obviously, this is kind of stereotypical, but kind of. You don't really see them have big calves. Now, Prince Nassim, he was really strong. He was overall very strong. He was very athletic versus his legs, but you saw the way he would backflip. He had great balance, great strong lower half. He'd be like one of the anomalies because he also had a pretty good chin. Like, he took a lot of punches given how defensively flawed he was because he didn't really use fundamentals. He fought with his hands low, chin up in the air, and he was like, he's a very showman. Given those deficiency flaws, like, he took pretty good punches.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I see. So what you're
I
saying.
don't know, man. It means a lot of things, being chinny. But if you are chinny like Amir Khan, you can get away with that if you have great defense, right?
Yeah.
If you don't get hit on the chin, hell, we never know. We're never gonna find out that if you are chinny. So you have to be almost fucking perfect. You got to learn how to defend properly, block properly, evade punches. And Amir Khan didn't have that great of a defense, right? Because his strength was combination punching. His strength was his hand speed. He was great in adding points. So he didn't know any better. He wasn't just going to win the round or the fight just by throwing one jab and two and then hug. No, Amir Khan was fucking flamboyant. He was flashy. He had to let the impeccable hand speed and his hands go because, dude, that's what made Amir Khan epic as it was. And then you just knew it was a matter of time, like, boom, and you're fucking done.
So that punch right there, though, homie Ricky, that was an unexpected punch, right? Like you said, it was a throwaway punch. It landed when he was at an angle, leaning back. He never expected that punch to come from that angle. Hit him. I'm trying to find ways to give him a benefit of the doubt, right? He obviously fell, so you can't give him too much of a benefit because he fell. He got hurt. But what I'm saying is that very early in the fight, he got tagged. Before he's warmed up, before he even takes the first punch, and understands the power that Pablo Cesar Cano was carrying. Before he had the proper opportunity to acclimate himself to taking punches from a fighter man. Because remember, this guy started at 126. You do reach a peak, and obviously his peak was at 140. That's why he's never won anything. So I wouldn't necessarily judge him for not being able to recover from an early punch, because once you're rattled, well, you're gonna stay rattled, especially if the fight lasts only 2 minutes, and you continue to get dropped from the next punch because you haven't yet gathered your wits about you. So I think maybe a better
Hey, you wanna hold it
indication.
down, bro? Cause I gotta clean up a little bit, man.
Clean up a little bit.
Yeah, just hold it down, bro. Do your thing.
Okay, yeah. So, anyways, going back, right? I would say something closer to what happened back in 2011 when Jorge Linares lost to Antonio DeMarco is likely a better indication of his lack of punch resistance. Now, unfortunately, our beloved listeners, I do apologize that I do recall having seen that fight. You know, about 15 years ago or so now. Nonetheless, I don't recall exactly how it happened, but the box rex indicates that when Jorge Linares fought Antonio Nebarco, one of those Mexican champions, he had a good run for a while. That he was fighting for a 12 rounder, and the fight ended in a TKO fashion in the 11th round. Something tells me, and any of our listeners with better memories can confirm or correct me if not, but it sounds like one of those fights that was very competitive, likely being won by Jorge Linares until maybe Antonio DeMarco, came through with some interesting punches and hurt this guy, and he couldn't recover. I think that would be a better indication. That especially if Jorge Linares was winning, because if he was winning for the greater portion of the fight, and then the one punch that he takes, it leads to his downfall on that fight, that's a better indication for me that he is less punch tolerant than than most others, right? I don't know if maybe taking a fight like Pablo Cesar Cano and getting rocked in the very first round and then continuing to be rocked in the very first round, that's necessarily a great indication of a lack of punch resistance, just due to the fact that he got surprised. It was his first outing at 140. He probably never had time to recover his wits and stayed witless until he was stopped as a TKO with that guy. So, but homie Ricky asked a very interesting question now that he's retired. If I'm not mistaken, 2 years from the date of Jorge Linares having retired, he is eligible for a consideration into the Hall of Fame. So, I guess maybe Jorge Linares, right? As of October 21st, 2025, is the first time he can be voted in by former fighters and writers of boxing as a candidate for Hall of Fame. Now, I want to ask our beloved listeners, do you think that Jorge Linares, let me just read to you the Wikipedia description of the man. Jorge Luis Linares Palencia, born the 22nd of August of 1985, is a Venezuelan retired professional boxer. He has held world championships in 3 weight classes, including the WBC featherweight title from 2007 to 2008, the WBA super featherweight title from 2008 to 2009. So he went up in weight and did it at a higher weight class, and the WBA, WBC, and Ring magazine lightweight titles between 2014 and 2018. So at 135, he was able to hold his belts for 4 years for 2 different sanctioning organizations, and of course the very beloved and appreciated Ring nomenclature. Now, again, my question to you, my dear listeners, is: do you think a fighter with a career like that deserves consideration into the Hall of Fame. Let's just run down a couple of the names that he's fought in, right? He has fought in Jack Catterall, an undefeated fighter, going up into 140, a weight class that he's only gone up to once in his storied career, and lost in. He went there and lost again. He's been fighting for 21 years of his life. He lost to that man. He lost to Sora Hamasarian. Saur Abdullayev, a loss. Undisputed Devin Haney. He's fought in Pablo Cesar Cano, unheralded. He fought Vasily Lomachenko, Mercito Gesta, Luke Campbell. He beat all of those guys except Vasily Lomachenko. Anthony Corolla, he beat that guy. Ivan Cano. He's fought in Sergio Thompson, Antonio DeMarco, Rocky Juarez. He lost to Juan Carlos Salgado. Now, and he fought Gamaliel Diaz, Oscar Larios, a bunch of names, right? Now, this is where I think we really have to consider what is it that bars a man like Jorge Linares from becoming a Hall of Famer. And it's not the fact that he is punch intolerant. It's not that. It's not necessarily that he lost his greatest fights. Like, for example, Vasily High Tech or the Matrix, Lomachenko. It's not that he lost to Devin the Dream Haney, who ended up becoming undisputed. It's not that he lost those fights. Because, like the homie Ricky proposes, if you put up great moments, you just might be considered just solely off of the moments, off of the impact that you've had in the sport, an opportunity to go into the Hall of Fame, right? Just the impact. Now, you can argue that those fights were great, and you can argue that, yes, they were impactful. You can point out the fact that he lost them and discredit the man. You can point out that arguably those were the toughest fights that both of those men had at that moment. Yes, you can say that. You can even say, look, he's fought into arguably a man who fought for undisputed twice and lost both of them, Vasily Lomachenko, and he lost to who became undisputed fighter of 135, Devin Haney. And you could say, see, he only loses to the greatest of fighters. And you can also say you should discount the last 4 fights because he was already outside of his prime. And he was already, nearly a 40-year-old man, right? Because that's basically what we're discussing when we consider Jorge Linares. Right now, he is nearly 40 years of age. So the last 4 fights, especially after a long hiatus, you can say that Jorge Linares was outside of his prime. So you can find ways to justify and to continue to think that we should be more considerate of this gentleman. But this is the one thing that is unforgivable. If you look closely into our hero's career, wow, this is going to be tough, guys. Because I like to just consider these fights and their fighters as wins or losses, and I like to keep things as simple as I can because I don't want to complicate yourself with nuance or context and stuff like that, because that requires you to really go back into the films, that requires you to really go back into the reportage of the sport and to the paper reports and all these other missives, and I don't want to subject you to that, right? Because who has the time for it? I mean, I'm sure that all of our readers, all of our listeners are astute, well-read individuals, but I also want to accredit him and say, men like Mr. Vince Vargas, our beloved listener, our very first person who's ever wrote to us. And yes, I do acknowledge that you are there, Mr. Vince Vargas. By the way, sir, I have to say, every day that you comment, it just spirits me up. It brings a little joy into my heart knowing that you're still around. I love knowing that there is a person out there that listens to us religiously, very respectful. I know he's a local gentleman, and those potentials make it feel just much more special for somebody like myself. But I imagine that gentlemen like Mr. Vince Vargas or Larry Liston or anybody else that's out there that usually listens to us in comments, I'm sure that they're very busy individuals and they don't have time to go through these records and look at all the film and consider how they ended. But I'll just keep things very simple, gentlemen and ladies, if you guys are out there. Every time that Mr. Jorge Linares became a champion, it was always because the belt was vacant. Wow. When Jorge Linares first became a champ, back in, wow, this is crazy. When he first became a real recognized champ, back in 2007, when he fought a Mr. Oscar Larrios in the Mandalay Bay, Nevada, he beat that man on a vacant WBC interim featherweight title. The record indicates that his next fight against Gamaliel Diaz, which was a very reputable fella there, good fighter. I remember seeing the next fight on December the 15th of 2007. He retained the WBC featherweight title. Remember, the fight prior, he won it out of a vacancy, which meant he did not beat a belt holder. A belt holder, a former champion, either lost it because of inactivity or he vacated to go to a higher weight class. Nonetheless, a belt became vacant. Mr. Larios and Mr. Linares fought for it, and he won the interim belt. Now, recall that the interim only means that you're holding a belt for the champion to come back, the true champion to come back down to fight for it, or if that champion decides to remain at a higher weight class, then you are elevated to a full-blown champion, which is exactly what happened when he retained and defended that featherweight title against Gamaliel Diaz. Okay, so he became a champion of a vacancy. This was with featherweight. After that fight, now it's Mr. Jorge Linares' turn to go up in weight, and he moved up to super featherweight. Now, interesting enough, it gets, again, very interesting because he fights a Mr. Weiber Garcia November the 28th, 2008, and he fought for, can you guess, another vacant title. He became a 2-division champion. This time in another sanctioning body, this time in the WBA, but at a higher weight class, he became a super featherweight title holder on a vacancy. That meant that there was another opportunity for Jorge Linares to fight for a belt where he didn't have to fight the champion. It was just granted to him. Let's continue. He defends it. 2 fights after that, he loses it to Juan Carlos Salgado. He stays at super featherweight for a few fights. Then he comes back down to lightweight. He stays at lightweight for a while. It goes up to lightweight, I mean. And In 2011, he fights Antonio De Marco for, guess what? Another vacant lightweight title. This time he loses, though. He loses it. But still, he's having these opportunities to become champion without beating the men who had the belts. That's what you call being an opportunistic fighter. Now we go on, and then a few years after that, in 2014, because he fought in 2011 for a shot, he missed out on the shot. 3 years later, he won a vacant WBC lightweight title. And then he won the WBA. This time he actually beat a champion, and Anthony Corolla in Manchester, England. But he also picked up the vacant ring lightweight title. Beloved listeners of mine, and of the homie Ricky, and of Drew, when we consider the career of our hero, Jorge Niño de Oro Linares, we have to face facts, and we have to understand that the greatest of his moments came not when he beat champions, but when the champions moved on and he picked up titles. Now, I'm a very forgiving individual. I cannot control, and neither can he. None of us can control the movement of men. If these fighters vacated and moved up in weight or retired or whatever may have happened, it was their decision. I'm sure that Jorge Linares would have been honored enough, brave enough, skillful enough to fight those men and win those belts outright through violence, offense, and defense. But he never had that opportunity. Only once. And every other opportunity that he got, he became a champ because somebody either retired or moved on from the sport. Maybe. Now, I'm not too sure. We would have to deep dive even more. But maybe they decided to retire or move up, or maybe even move down to avoid fighting him, because he really was that good. He really was that magical. He was a special fighter. I'm not saying this to discredit the man, because again, I'm that type of boxing fan that does not like to look for ways to discredit these fighters, because again, these are things outside of our control. The maneuvering of these fighters, the sanctioning, and the business opportunities presented to promoters and the sanctioning bodies allow for a chicanery, creative matchmaking, and other things that just if we dive deeply into these matters, we'll just end up thinking that our sport is very corrupted, and we'll develop that cynicism of the heart that might just ruin the experience as a fan. So I'm just gonna end my diatribe, my rant, by saying, irrespective of how it was that Mr. Jorge Linares procured his belts, the gentleman did defend valiantly. He did always provide the excitement, and none of it was his fault, but he got belts the easy way, but he fought the hard way to keep them. And we know that the man has losses to some of the greatest fighters in current decades, but nonetheless, that just means that he was willing and able to step up to fight anybody and leave no names behind. Mr. Jorge Linares, he retired as of Saturday. I will say this finally. Jorge Linares, as much as I love the man and will miss the man, he will not be a Hall of Famer. It hurts to say that, but it's keep it real. He is gonna have a fond, special place in my heart. But Jorge, if you're hearing me, and I know you're not, but one day these words may resonate with you. You mean everything in the sport. Why? Because we boxing fans romanticize your life. Because you don't have to be a Hall of Famer. You don't have to be undefeated to gain our admiration and keep our respect. You will live in the halls of fame in our hearts, even though the writers that dictate and vote to see who goes in may skip you, even though other fighters may pick your career and say, I deserve it more than you. Maybe they do. But one thing we know is this: win or lose, you were always an exciting fighter. We will miss you. The sport is worse off with you walking away, but we will fondly remember every single one of the fights we were privileged and blessed to see. Adiós al gran campeón Jorge, el niño de oro Linares. Mr. Vince Vargas, good even fall to you, sir. Um, you've never seen him fight. Well, that's not surprising, Mr. Vargas. The last few years of Mr. Linares' career, he was in a downwards trend. They were facing him against very young, undefeated power fighters. Um, and he had already sustained a couple of bad losses. Homie Ricky acknowledged the fact that the gentleman had a lack of punch resistance that likely left some trauma in the men. And the older you get, I'm not too sure how old you are, um, but you seem, I'm sure that you're wise enough to know the older you get, uh, you just don't get, uh, how do I phrase this? You become more of a realist, right? Maybe perhaps in youth, you have that invincibility, right? That that innocence that allows you to think that you can fly, that you can do anything. And that imagination and that invincibility is hard to kill off. Youth changes into maturity. And the thing about maturity is that with maturity, there's a clarity of the mind. And a lot of that time, the clarity of the mind makes it so that the imagination of the invincible starts to become less a possibility and more an acknowledgement that it was always a fancy of the mind, that perhaps there's no such thing as being invincible. There's no such thing as you being able to fly. It's almost like the same thing as what happens when we're children and we believed in Santa Claus. Our youthful innocence allows us to think of everything, including the impossible, and to take that as possible. And then somebody ruins it for us. I think a lot of the time when we mature and we age, especially, things get ruined. And I think what happened with Jorge Linares is that with his losses, especially the more consecutive ones, because he took four in a row, he started to inculcate in his mind the possibility that he would not only never be a champion, but that these guys were too good for him. Because some of those fighters, Abdusayev, like, really, like, you don't think he could have beaten that guy? Saur Abdulayev, I mean, I think he could have beaten that guy. Zora Hamazarian, Russian fighter. I think a couple of years before that, Mr. Vince Vargas, I'm sure he would have beaten him because this guy was special. But uh, He just couldn't. But if you ever have an opportunity, Mr. Vargas, to watch his fights, he had great ones against Luke Campbell. I'm sure they're on YouTube. Luke Campbell versus Jorge Linares. He had a good one against Devin Haney. So I guess Haney versus Linares. He had a very good one against Lomachenko versus Linares. He actually dropped uh, and sat Lomachenko on his behind. So he had very good fights. And every other fight, I'm just mentioning the ones that were very competitive, because otherwise he was destroying people unless they knocked him out. Mr. Vince Vargas says, I'm 48, but mainly seeing the mainstream of fighters. I do stumble upon fighters that I like or like to follow. Yeah, Mr. Vince Vargas. Yeah. So, yeah, no, you're 48. I'm 44. So, yeah, we're around that same age. And, I'm not too sure if you've changed as an individual from who you were as a teenager to where you are now. I hope you retain some of uh, that spirit, that spunkiness of youth. I try to. I try to do things like mountain bike and play sports, uh, jog, and just try and become active so that I never become an individual that is completely forgotten what it means like to feel the energy and the spirit of the invincible. But yeah, I'm sure that you've learned a couple of lessons here and there as you've matured in your age. Um, but yeah, it's he was a special fighter, Mr. Vargas. I would definitely recommend you watch the Lomachenko versus Linares fight. It should be on YouTube. I think Lomachenko stops Linares on the 11th after he being dropped, but it was a very high stakes fight. Linares was very game in that fight. But homie Ricky sort of insinuated that he may have had a little quit after taking a good punch here and there. I don't know if I completely agree with that, but homie Ricky is mostly always right, and like he has the saying that says "You're wrong," and he invented that after speaking to me enough times. So I guess maybe I'm always wrong and he's always right. Nonetheless, whatever homie Ricky says, I would take that. Much more and honor that more so than me because I do have a very bad mind, very bad memory, and not the best takes. Oh, so the homie Ricky is saying that I kicked him out. I don't know how you kick out the homie Ricky from his own podcast, but I kicked out. I kicked out the homie Ricky. I'm not too sure how I did that, homie Ricky. You were doing whatever you were doing, and you allowed me to cook and steal your listeners. So I'm having fun. Okay, enough about Jorge Linares. Um, are you guys ready for Halloween? See, I'm trying to. Close friends listen to podcast. Uh,
They miss having an interview.
Yo, Speed, did you hop off? Think everyone took off, man. I'm always kind of late to it. Yeah, because I got to wrap it up at work. I think he's gone, man. Alrighty, guys. Buenas noches.
¿Ya se van a dormir?
Wait.
¿Tan temprano?
Wait. Is he still here?
Huh? I guess as soon as
What do you mean you're still here, bruv? There's no one on here. I am still here. As in the chat listening or like, because, let me see. Add to. Hey, Speed, mic check real quick.
Man, you're weird.
How come, what happened? Did you log off or something?
What do you mean I logged off? You're the guy who's broadcasting.
Yeah, but shit, I don't even know. You know, I am confusion. What's going on, bro? How you been?
Yeah, no. Man, you are a master of technical difficulties, man. I was catching your live from yesterday, a disaster of a show, if I say so myself. And you are doing the same thing around the same time, but this time with me. Like, oh my
Oh, sorry.
goodness, what is going on with you, the homie Ricky?
Oh no, man. He just like around 9:50 to 10. I gotta wrap it up. I gotta clean my instruments and my food plates and stuff before I head out home from work. So it takes me. I don't know, man. My connection starts to act all very strange and very weird. But Vince is saying that you were having issues speaking on your mic, so you kind of cut out and try to probably log back on. But no, it's all good, man.
Oh,
What were you talking about before you last, opted out for a bit?
okay. No, well, the homie Ricky, I ended up basically, agreeing with you at the end that the homie that the
Yo, you cut out again.
and admired the gentleman's professional career, um, and I basically gave a recap of
And I,
his career, which basically we discovered in this deep dive that the three times that he became a champion, these multiple weight classes, he basically won them all off of vacancies,
yeah,
all on vacancies. Of course, you understand that a vacancy is a very bad way to become a champion, because that means somebody walked away from the sport or moved up or down. You never had to fight the actual belt holder, and you had to fight the next man in line besides you, one and two, to fight for it. But there's always a way to discredit a fighter that has obtained a belt in any other way besides fighting a champion. So that was a lamentable and quite regrettable thing to point out. I did not want to point that out, but of course, when we consider that he has lost to great men, but nonetheless he has lost those greatest momentaneous fights, like
yeah,
Devin Haney and Lomachenko, and even Jack Catterall, that he's always faltered, that he's always missed out on those opportunities. And when you couple that with the fact that he's gotten his belts from vacancies, except for one at 135, where he became a lineal, actually, lineal at 135 was another vacant belt from the ring that he obtained. When you look at all of those things, homie Ricky, you just have to say, okay, Jorge, we love you, but you won't get in that Hall of Fame. It
yeah.
was
No,
just one of those
it's
things.
very, it's very true, man. It's like when we talked about like an hour ago, talking about the impact that Jorge Linares. Look. I'm gonna say this: if I had a son, if I had if I was a professional boxer, I would be beyond blessed and grateful to even be close to having a career like Jorge Linares. Like the guy is still a legend in his own. You see what I'm saying? He's still a winner in life. He is a champion.
Absolutely.
Is he the greatest of champions? Is he the greatest ultimate winner and competitor? No. But that doesn't mean that he didn't have impact, right?
Yeah.
Like his impact, like it's not everlasting, it's not legendary, but it's a fucking great career. I would love to be able to knock out 36 of my 50 opponents and have a 70% knockout ratio.
Yeah.
And I thought I had a pretty good pop hand speed and I can hit. But to be able to do it at his level, even though they aren't the guys, like that's still incredible, man. So, when I look at fighters and I look at punch combination, I do go study Jorge Linares' fights.
Yeah.
When I go look at that 2-1-2 and how he was able to knock down Luke Campbell against a southpaw, I'm like, damn, I got to start implementing that to the fighters that I train or to my nephew, because I was like, that's a good 2-1-2 punch combination to land on the lefty, because you always want to throw and pop your two. There's moments where I'm like, even the Lomachenko fight, there was a beautiful display of combination punching. Even the sequence of that he hurt Devin Haney. There's a lot to learn and study of Jorge Linares, you see, and you talked about it briefly, how he has a nationality or residency card in Japan.
Yeah.
See, the Japanese fighters and their culture, they notice Jorge Linares' skill set. It's kind of like when the Russians gave residency to Roy Jones Jr., and now he's teaching or has taught some of the Russian Olympians. Jorge Linares is that boxing ambassador to the Japanese up-and-coming fighters. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, Inoue's, the Junto Nakatanis have studied and asked Jorge Linares,
Oh,
suggestions and tips
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So they noticed that
Absolutely.
this guy has skill. Jorge Linares had said so himself, that after retirement, he would love to coach and be
Yeah.
a trainer in the Ismael Salas gym. So these little things, yeah, man, he can possibly be an even greater educator and teacher than he was a fighter. So yeah, man, Jorge Linares' career is amazing. I'm glad
Yeah.
that I got to witness it. And just because we want to be hypercritical and be like, oh, he didn't beat these guys, Hall of Famer, it doesn't mean that he didn't amount to greatness or he isn't a winner in life. I have the utmost respect for El Niño de Oro from Venezuela. So, yeah, man, amazing. And that goes for every fighter that we talk about. I have nothing but almost respect, except Rolly Romero. That's the only guy I don't really respect. But everybody else, like, I have a lot of admiration, and I look up to these guys from a competitive boxing standpoint. But hold on, man, because yo, do you think? Do you think?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Like, how many professional fighters can say that a whole nation took them under the wing and said, "We want you to be nationalized. We want you to become one of our residents. We will build you a home here in our country." Japan loved this fighter so much that they made him a Japanese national. He's
Yeah,
lived
absolutely.
there. That's how much they loved him. And now that you think about it, Naoya
And that's how
Inoue,
much they admire his skill set and what he can bring as an educator to his up and coming opponent, Japanese fighters.
yep, yep.
All
So
because of
that,
that guy Honda,
yeah,
the Honda
there
Tekken
was,
champion or whatever.
yeah, there was so much yeah, God bless him. He won't be a Hall of Famer, but that's okay, Jorge. That's okay. So,
I
homie
want to
Ricky,
address Vince's comment. He goes, "Yeah, yesterday ended up with Miss Ma in the chat wanting to know about the female boxer Danila Ramos, and yeah, when she said something in the comment like, 'Oh, what do you know about Ramos? Does she have a chance?' For some reason, my head went to, Jesus Ramos,
yeah, yeah,
the
I
guy
know.
that came up short against Erickson Lubin. And I was like, Ramos, who's Ramos? Because Danila Ramos, I recognize her by Danila. When they throw me Ramos, I'm just kind of like, and they threw me the last name Vargas, I'm thinking like the Fernando family, like what's going on here, But
Yeah, no, you guys were
yeah,
all
I
over
just
the
completely
place. It was
fumbled
not
that
your
shit, and
best.
that was terrible.
Yeah, it
And then
was
I
a
had
big
to
fumble.
yeah to clock out. But yeah, no, I think I kind of addressed it earlier in the live before you hopped on.
I
She
was
has some
slapping
pretty
my
good skill
forehead.
set.
I was
Yeah, she has
slapping
some
my
pretty
forehead
good.
the whole time. There was you told Drew handle the show for me while I close up, and the guy choked. And like about 2 minutes, he hops off. He's so nervous. He becomes. I can imagine him sweating at the brow and everything, just going all crazy. Like, what do I do? What do I do? Like his hands trembling, and I was like, oh my goodness, what do I do? Like I caught the replay, so there was no way I could even hop on, you know. And of course, I've been putting, you know, I've been getting under Drew's skin because of how the last time you muted me, you silenced me, you censored me, and I said, you guys are gonna pay for it. I'm not gonna
You
hop
guys are
on.
gonna regret it.
I told you you would regret it. I said I'm not gonna hop on for. I was gonna push it for 2 weeks just to punish you guys. I was like, let's see if these guys can
Bang
survive
bang.
without me. And yeah, sure enough, Drew couldn't even handle the show for 1 minute, and I was like, oh man, this guy is funny. But yeah, it was a disastrous live. I was laughing
It was
about
a
it. I said, you know what?
disastrous ending, man. It was a disastrous ending, but it was funny though, man.
Yeah, so the Nila Ramos. Here's the thing, homie Ricky. I do follow boxing, female boxing. Here's the funny one.
Look what Vince is saying, man. He goes, yeah, yesterday ended up with Mon in chat wanting to know more about the female boxer. Drew got nervous and he bounced.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask him questions in the chat about if he was gonna go to the House of Champions, but he
Oh yeah. So we brought up House of
that was
Champions.
sad,
Remember,
man.
homie Ricky, the House of Champions is Robert Garcia's his promotion of boxing, and he's about on his fourth, and it's been so successful that he just had one this month, in fact, at the beginning, like around the 11th, and he's about to repeat it again on the 12th, if I'm not mistaken, or the 10th. I can't remember, but it's in November. And if you look at the lineup, you got fighters from Salinas, you have fighters from Gilroy, you have fighters from Fresno. I'm sure some of those guys are from Bakersfield. Tough towns, tough towns, tough fighters, and the price is right. uh I know that Mr. Vargas, if I'm not mistaken, one time he was visiting family in Fresno. I think he was having a grand time with his father. I imagine Mr. Vargas is gonna go to House of Champions. What are you gonna do, homie Ricky? Because that's a great lineup, and the price is right, and the venue seems very intimate and close.
Shit, my bad, bro. You caught me in a chew. My girl made me some beer battered fish tacos, so I'm enjoying this munch. But well, I think I asked you guys maybe like a month ago if you guys were gonna go to the Devin Haney fight over there at the Oracle Stadium in San Francisco, if you guys wanted to go support these local cats and the Robert Garcia event over there in Fresno. I don't think you guys really answered the question. We kind of discussed it prematurely about going to watch Devin Haney,
Mhm.
but it was nothing really like we didn't solidify our decision. And then honestly, I would rather go to this House of Champions. To be honest with you, I do
Yeah,
recognize and know some of those fighters.
yeah.
And hell, man, it's always good to support up and coming businesses that are probably going to give you good fights on the cheap. And
Hmm.
maybe you get to see a Mikey Garcia sighting. Maybe you get to shake his hand.
Hmm.
Same thing with Robert Garcia. You can probably see Hector Tanajara, Lindolfo
Mark
Delgado, maybe
Castro.
Bam Bam Rodriguez. Mark Castro is definitely going to be there. So
Yeah.
you get to see all these local up and coming fighters or legends of past year. And for that price, man, I mean, you can't beat it. So if you're a diehard boxing fan, or like a Chicano, or somebody that's interested and got a couple dollars, bro, like that's gonna be a good little event. So of course, I would like to go to it.
The
But
good thing is,
I don't
Mr.
think we ever
Vargas,
really came to a decision.
Mr. Vargas states very true. Warp. Yeah. For those that want a good show or for a good price, both are on the same day or weekend. And he ends that with the question mark. And no, they're not. So we don't have to actually pick and choose, Mr. Vargas. Um, one is in a couple of weeks in November. The other one is in December the 2nd. Is that right, homie Ricky? Or the 9th? Um, one of those. So we don't have to. But the Devin Haney and Regis Prograf fight is substantially, significantly much more expensive. In fact, the date that I tried to buy tickets, a lot of the seats that I prefer to get, which are closer viewing area, were already in the hundreds. And this was just a couple of hours after being launched. Now, it's understandable, right? Everybody's going to go for those first when they're at their cheapest, but they were still hundreds. So I said, okay, let's get some on the second row or the second row of seats. They were still in the hundreds, but relatively well priced. Like they were still 120, 150 or whatever. That seemed like, a great price considering the city of San Francisco is a very exorbitant, expensive place to go and entertain yourself at. But then, when I ran this idea of buying the tickets with the homie Ricky and Drew, we talked about it. We never pulled the trigger on it. And then I just most recently checked on them, and the prices had doubled.
Yeah.
Now,
So a lot of
so
resale already. So
yeah, not only resale, but they're actually selling quite good, homie Ricky. They're halfway sold out already. No, in fact, I think it's more than halfway sold out. So they're people are very excited about the professional championship boxing in Northern California, which I guess in the city of San Francisco has been actually decades since
yeah.
it's happened. So
Yeah,
everybody is
that's one of the
excited.
things that I'm interested in going to it. But again, I think the
Yeah, who
nosebleeds
does?
are like over $100. And
Yeah.
then when you start getting to the second tier, they're like triple or quadruple the price. Yeah, I don't really
Yes.
got that kind of bread either, man. So I mean, I can spend it, but if you're asking me to go watch guys that I actually know since kids and now they're turning professional,
Yeah.
guys that I have access to and I can ask them questions and maybe even bounce them on the live, like my homie Jorge Maravillo. Um, I'm gonna go support the kids. You know what I'm saying? Well, not kids,
Yeah.
young men, and then
Yeah.
for like 1/10 of the price. So
Mhm.
yeah, like it, But I would look, man. I lived in San Francisco. I love that city. Um, I want to support Devin Haney, and I want to go watch Regis Pro Gray.
Yeah.
But I mean, I gotta support like literally my neighbor type of thing, right? And he's fighting in a card of Fresno, and I can probably chop it up with Robert Garcia and see if he wants to spar a couple of rounds. Like come on, like how am I gonna miss that opportunity?
Yeah. You always want to fight everybody. So yeah, no, you know what, homie Ricky, I think the best thing besides going in person to watch these great champions is to pay for the pay-per-view, because now the other thing that is posing a risk to the success of the career of Devin Haney and
In fact, I'm gonna try to. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm gonna get a little bit in shape, and I'm gonna be like, "Hey, Ruben, let's spar," and then a ver qué dice el morro. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I'll
I think he'll
record it. I'll
piece you up.
post it.
I
Yeah,
think he'll
I
piece
mean,
you up. It's
I
been a
don't know,
little
bro.
while since
Like
I've seen you fight, though.
these cops get intimidated by these guns, bro.
Um, so I
I need
think
that gun.
the best way, especially in light of Floyd Mayweather saying that he's gonna spar or have one of those exhibition fights against Mikey Garcia and those other semi-retired fighters, charging us $85 to watch them instead of watching Devin Haney on the stacked card of undefeated and exciting fighters like Liam Paro. I think I'm gonna put my $80 or $60 in the zone
Yeah.
to watch Devin Haney than give $85 for fighters that should have fought a long time ago on the very last Showtime event before they completely are out of the business of boxing for this
Let
year,
me ask you a question
2023.
in regards to that situation. The Floyd Mayweather undercard, is it gonna be Keith Thurman versus Stanionis?
That's what I heard.
Damn, bro.
I also heard that
It's tough.
I think they said Danny Garcia versus Ruslandi Lara. Uh, Mayweather, of course, versus Mikey Garcia, Robert Garcia's little brother, and a police officer in the city of Fresno, if I'm not mistaken. Um, there's just so many Uh, there's good. What they are, homie Ricky, is they're good names. They're good names, but they're fighters that in any other fight. Look, a lot of people are complaining about Devin Haney and Regis program not even being a pay-per-view worthy fight. But these are for undisputed, right? And then in the other card, it's global fighters that are undefeated and fighting for belts too. If that is not a pay-per-view worthy event, why would fighters that have not hold any belts that should have fought many years ago and that will likely never see because they're semi-retired, why would that be a pay-per-view event? It doesn't make any
Well,
sense. Mr. Vince Vargas says transportation, hotel if you don't want to drive. I like to have a beer too and enjoy myself. Yeah, so yeah, Mr. Vargas, obviously, yeah. Hmm.
yeah, no,
Uh,
sorry about that, Speed.
you can probably go to Fresno, stay at a nice hotel, have more than a few beers, go to that event, the House of Champions, and still save half of the yourself the money uh, than if you went to San Francisco and bought a beer over there. If God forbid you stay you stay overnight at San Francisco because, well, you know, if you find a place, it's gonna be very expensive. Yeah, the House of Champions is probably the best
unless you
bet.
get a little spot in Daly City.
What, Daly City is cheap or something?
Yeah, it's like a little bit in the outskirts. You can probably get like a Motel 6 type of thing. You know? I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't remember. It's been a while, man. I
Yeah,
was gonna
no,
say, you said something about the Floyd Mayweather. You asked me a question, but I kind of cut off a little bit. Keith Thurman versus Stanionis. It's not bad, bro. It's not
I know.
bad. I got Stanionis. But yeah, no, to that point of the Devin Haney pay-per-view, you got what, Steve Spark fighting Montana Love in the rematch or no?
Oh,
Or I
wow.
think Montana Love was gonna fight, right?
Yeah, Montana Love. I think he. Oh no, it's not Richardson Hitchens.
No, or
Uh,
maybe it was Leon Paro versus Montana Love.
yeah,
And then
Liam
you had
Paro is dangerous.
you had like three good little fights right there.
Yeah,
And I forgot, it was the main event, which was Devin Haney and Regis, and the co-main event was going to be pretty good, and also the third one was going to be really good. But I just don't remember like the order of operations and what was going to be the flow of it. But it's not a bad card to go, and I'm pretty sure Eddie Hearn is going to put on a spectacle. Hell, you might even see Steph Curry in attendance.
yeah. Oh,
I know
yeah.
that.
You will. You will. It's because it's
That's what I'm
already that
saying, you
type of
know. So it's
event, the
not
homie
bad.
Ricky. Yeah, no, it's not. It's just expensive. It's expensive.
Yeah,
Well, it's actually.
it's not too expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
But
It's not too expensive.
you know, it's not too expensive, but you are gonna put up a good little penny for sure. But again, when you can support basically quote unquote your own people, you know, that I kind of grew up and I've known and I've, you know, trained with them.
Yeah.
You know, when Jorge Maravillo was training with you know, one of our coaches, Ricardo, and fuck, what was the other coach? It was Coach Rick and Coach Arcadio. We were training in the garage. They had like a little gym set up. Jorge was 16, 17 years old at the age, nursing an injury. So like knowing that he's, you know, now 8-0 with 6 KOs. I mean, come on, how can you not support him, you know? But yeah, like quote unquote, that's basically your people. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, how much are those tickets for the House of Champions? Do you guys know, like 30, $50?
Yeah, I think it started at 29.
Yeah, you know, that's not bad, man. That's not bad at all. So, you know, you're definitely going to be able to enjoy like 2, 3 beers right there, Vince. And transportation, yeah, you know, it's California gas, so, you know. But
So yeah, I guess
it's not bad, man.
it almost equal out the price of a Devin Haney, just a guess.
Yeah, just on the nosebleeds. But
Yeah,
yeah, man.
well, it depends on what kind of a vehicle Mr. Vargas says. You know, if he has something, you know, electric or whatever, maybe he can spare himself some. But if you have yourself like a nice old 60s Chevy with a 350 or a 454, yeah, you're Yeah, you spend a pretty penny going over there. Nonetheless, family, close proximity, local fighters, um, yeah, and just so close. You can touch these guys. You can talk to these guys.
Whoa,
You can scream. You can
whoa.
scream. What? I actually shook hands with Mark Castro the last time we went to fight in Fresno. So yeah, these people are approachable. These people are accessible. It's not like they forget why they're doing it. They're doing it for us. They're doing it for the entertainment that they want to provide us. So yeah, it's I think I don't know, homie Ricky, if you're down to go. Uh,
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna go to Ruben Villa's gym tomorrow, and I'm gonna go buy a shirt. He came out with a new drag shirt, and
hmm,
he's got like a tag of Top Rank and stuff. And I'll probably cop a ticket right there if Jorge is nearby. I know the other
hmm,
guy, Ruben Cervera,
hmm,
the Colombian that Ruben Villa fought.
yeah.
He was there last time. Hey, maybe I'll stop by tomorrow just a little bit because I know that we wanted to go to San Jose to Great America, but that'll be later on in the night. But but yeah, no, I'll probably stop by their gym and see if they're selling tickets.
You know what, homie Ricky? There
A
was
ver qué pasa.
there was so many things, homie Ricky. So many things that I wanted to address. Besides Jorge Linares, I wanted to talk about news events, current going-ons, and things of the sort.
It's
But
gonna be
I
11 o'clock, man.
yeah,
You
I
have to
know
go to
that's what I
work.
was gonna say. I was gonna say I know it's getting late into the evening. Uh, we might have to report on any changes of the news, but I can tell you this: there was a lot to talk about today.
Address a few.
Unfortunately, w- well, uh, well, this one probably merits its own hour or two. But one of the things that was going on recently is that one of our champions, one of the longest reigning champions, and Jamal Charlo was complaining about why everybody is ignoring him and not promoting him. Why Showtime is not promoting his upcoming fight. Uh, and mind you, homie Ricky, I was saying that in jest, right? I was laughing. Jamal Charlo is one of the longest reigning champions at the moment because for about 2.5 years he hasn't fought.
Yeah, it's
and
sad, man.
yeah, I mean, I'm not laughing at
Even
that.
your question of Jamal saying, "Why isn't Showtime promoting me, bro? Do you know like they're only in the business for like a month or two left? Like, what the fuck is wrong with
Yeah,
him?"
I know. Like, are you kidding me, my guy? Like, are you kidding me? They just announced they're gonna end promotion. They're gonna end the participation in the sport, and you're talking about why they're ignoring you, why they're not spending money on promoting a fighter that hasn't fought in 2.5, almost 3 years. Come on, man. This ain't personal. This is the end of boxing, of 4 decades long boxing, and you're worried about why they're not willing to dish out money on promoting your fight against who? Against who? Li- like literally against who? Like who are you trying to fight? Why should they remember? See, is yeah, we probably have to talk about that on another occasion, homie Ricky. Because here's the thing: when you think about fighters that have retired, right, and came back in the sport, you have to think about when they retired, did people miss them? And when they came back, did people follow them? Right? We have fighters like Sugar Ray Leonard, um, Mike Tyson, George Foreman. We have all these fighters, Muhammad Ali, all these fighters that have walked away for the sport, retired or forced out of it. Like in the case of Muhammad Ali, that he became a political prisoner, that he walked away from the sport. He continued to be followed by the world. And when he returned, he continued to be followed by the world. We had George Foreman, who walked away from the sport for about a decade. And then he came back, and people anticipated his return, and he became a champion. Muhammad Ali went to prison. Evander Holyfield retired, came back to fight again. Sugar Ray Robinson. Did he know this, the homie Ricky? Sugar Ray Robinson. He only suffered one knockout loss in his career to a fighter by the name of Joey Maxim in 1952. He was fighting in 103-degree heat, and he tired out. And then Joey Maxim came and he stopped him. He knocked him out. Robinson, Sugar Ray Robinson, decided, of all things, that he was going to take up dancing. He was going to become not a ballet dancer, but a dancer. And he retired from the sport of boxing for 3 years to become a professional dancer. Only when it was proven after 3 years that he sucked at dancing did he say, "Oh, well, okay, I guess I wasn't made for dancing." But we know, what kind of a black man can you be if you don't know how to dance? I mean, every black man that I know dances and is great at dancing. So Sugar Ray Robinson took 3 years to become a dancer, and he sucked at it, and he came back to the sport of boxing, and he became a champion and a fighter for another decade. Same thing with Sugar Ray Leonard. He retired, came back. He retired because he suffered an injury in his eye. He came back after a few years to fight Tommy Hearns. He retired to fight Marvin Hagler after he got hurt from Tommy Hearns' punches. He retired and fought. Now let me ask you, the kind of fighters that I'm just mentioning to you, the homie Ricky,
Yeah.
they're legendary fighters. They're Hall of Famers. There is no question.
You
These
mean to
fighters
tell me
are.
Jamal is not in that class?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no,
So,
I agree, man. I don't know what. Look, man, I know Jamal's going through a lot in his life. By the way,
yeah,
thank you for sharing those details of Sugar Ray Leonard. Sorry, Sugar Ray Robinson wanted to be a dancer. That's funny. Uh, and I'm pretty sure he was a good dancer.
tragic.
But in his, if you compare his dancing skills to his boxing skills, yeah, they were probably like rudimentary. But yeah, with Jamal Charlo, what he has to understand is one of the reasons why Showtime is leaving the sport of boxing is because they didn't keep up with the Joneses, bro. Like, they're not in tune. You don't need them. As much as Showtime is leaving boxing, boxers don't really need Showtime, right? Look at how Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis did in terms of their pay-per-view numbers, right? They sold 1.2, 1.4 million pay-per-view buys. You know how they did that? Not because of Showtime. They did that off social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, using basically the power of the cell phone. Jamal Charlo has to understand, like, bro, this is a whole new wave. This is it's easier in that sense because you don't need big time networks, servers. You don't need, a lot of editors. You can literally just have one moment, one saying, right? A slogan, a shoe, um, till this day type of, quote. And that can go viral, and 20, 30 million people can just see that little one clip off a 1 minute short. So Jamal Charlo has to realize, like, bro, you don't need Showtime. Why are you begging? Why are you like shocked that Showtime isn't backing you guys? Like, are you not paying attention to the news? There's it's like a new sheriff in town, bro. And so I don't know, man. Jamal, I don't know. He's probably still, dealing with the repercussions of his personal situation that he's going through. And yeah, man, it's kind of sad, bro. That's the way I look at it. I like Jamal. I always liked his fights. So when I see him going through, his struggles, I mean, that's just life. But you know, it's life, man. Fuck, what can you say?
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to make light of the situation. Mostly the criticism that I have over that fighter is that they should have stripped him a long time ago. Nobody should
Yeah.
have the opportunity to hold on to a belt without defending it for 3 years for no reason. It's inexcusable. It's disrespectful to the other
Well,
men in line.
look at Dimitri Bivol. You know, he's going through something similar, but it's not more prevalent or circulated, I guess you can say. With Jamal, you know, there's video. He's recording it. He's uploading it. There's turmoil between him and his brother. The twin brothers, his wife, have fought in the street right there outside Las Vegas. You know, it's much more I guess open to the public. With the Bivol situation, him as well, you know, he hasn't fought in I don't know, close to a year or getting near a year. You know, I think he's also going through a custodial divorce situation as well. So hopefully that doesn't happen to him as well, you know, because these could be challenging times for Bivol. Whether the allegations are true, I'm not too sure. I haven't really kept up with it. I just heard or saw a post on the social media. But hell, maybe Bivol can, you know, be retired for another year or two. Who knows? Um, yeah, no, man, it just sucks. You know, it just sucks. There's just not an easier word to go about it. You know, Bivol can, you know, be talking with his lawyers, be talking with his wife, be like, hey, man, what's going on, you know? And then next thing you know, he tries to go back in training. He gets maybe a date. He injures his back or his forearm or his shoulder, his rotator cuff. He's out for another 6 months, and that's close to a year. So injuries happen in the sport. We talked about it earlier, but yeah, man, it's sad. I mean, there's nothing really that you can, you know. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, man.
That's like that right now that you said. It's like Hector Macho Camacho. He had the saying. He was interviewed, uh, and I can't remember if in one of the fights he quit, maybe against uh, Julio Cesar Chavez or something like that. Maybe he quit, or he fought somebody. Maybe he quit. But he said they asked him something, and he said, or maybe he was trying to negotiate for money, and they were asking him why he didn't want to fight this particular fighter. I don't know. I have to investigate more. And he said, bueno, me puedo lastimar la mano, me puedo lastimar la pierna, todo puede pasar. You know, like because you know he's Puerto Rican, so he talks very funny. Um, and he was basically saying, I
Manda?
could break my hand, I could break my leg, anything could happen. And he was basically saying anything can happen in the sport, so I have to consider all contingencies. And 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 he had that moment because it was hilarious. I don't think it was, as honorable perhaps as it could have been, but nonetheless everybody has different way of handling things. People obviously likes to keep things under wrap. The Charlos like to expose themselves to the world, and that's also admirable, right? The fact that they allow themselves to be part of our world. um, but I again, I don't necessarily like all of those things. I don't necessarily need that. I just need a good press conference, a good representation of yourself. I just need you to give me a good stare down, and especially, I need you to put it in there 100% in the ring. That was just one of the things that I wanted to address with you, the homie Ricky. The things that Jermel Charlo was saying, and I was thinking to myself, man, how outside of reality are you? Where you don't know Showtime is going to cease to exist in a couple of months, and you still are thinking that they should spend money on you when you haven't fought for 2 years. And I'm looking at all of these fighters that had long layoffs and vacations and semi-retirements, and
Hey,
you don't even,
mic check,
you're
mic check.
never close to that.
Yo, Speed, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can't hear shit.
You can't hear nothing? Is that what you're saying? So I'm not too sure. Are you saying you can't hear nothing? Okay. Yeah. So there was more news, ladies and gentlemen. That that I thought we should address. But nonetheless, I think we can hopefully the homie Ricky and I we can hook up the day of tomorrow, hash and gloss over these news. Uh, because there are few things coming up. Great stuff. Good fight. Seiko Shaki Foster fighting Eduardo Hernandez. And another stacked matchroom card. Hernandez, a Mexican, unheralded, is coming to beat undefeated Oshaki Foster at 130. Very dangerous fight
Fights
for
in
both
Mexico,
fighters in Mexico. Yeah, the
right?
champion is playing the B side and going to fight a Mexican over there in Mexico. And of course, a lot of people were like, why does the champion have to travel? Because that's where the money's at. What do you want? You know. Um.
No,
th-
but yeah, sure. But purse bid, Eddie Hearn
oh,
won the purse
another
bid.
yeah, another one of those absurd news of the day, which I always like to bring up. Can anybody guess who the new person calling out Canelo is?
You want to talk about Johnny Beck?
No. Oh man, I was gonna give you guys 10 seconds. Yeah, Johnny Beck, Alam Kanunlai, the 160 champion, now unified two belt holder, who's obviously
Man,
having a little spat with Adamis and the other guy who's holding another belt right there. He says, if Canelo is ready, I'm ready. I can knock him out easily. That's what he says. At 160, champion fighter who has fought. Uh, he's looked good. He's a very good basic southpaw, strong guy, knockout artist. Uh,
wouldn't say basic.
he's some. Hmm?
I wouldn't say basic. He's got some skill, man.
He's got frills. He's got. I think he's mostly no frills. He's just a standard southpaw, just powerful. He's
I guess you would.
come forward.
Nah, he's got some skill. He's slick. What I mean by that is he's got good counter punching ability. He's got a devastating uppercut. Devastating uppercut. That slip uppercut that he throws, is really good. I would like the way I can describe him is almost like a Demetrius Andrade, but with power, with concussive power. See, Andrade, he's very slick, but he's awkward. Johnny Beck fights very similar to him, but I don't think he has, Andrade's hand speed, and then Andrade don't have Johnny Beck's pop. You know what I mean? But yeah, I wouldn't say he's basic. I wouldn't call Johnny Beck basic. Nah, man, he's very crafty. Yeah, he's got some good skill. Obviously, the middleweight division right now, it's in a transitionary phase where, you know, there's not a lot of great fighters, and let alone big names. So, obviously, Johnny Beck, Carlos Adames stand out the most. Hell, Chris Eubank and Liam Smith are in the top 5, according to a box rec. So it's middleweight. It's a little weak right now, but that doesn't mean Johnny Beck is not a credible dude. That dude, he would give a good fight to Canelo, because I would rate Johnny Beck better than John Ryder. And if John Ryder can go 12 with Nello, I think I would say Johnny Beck could also as well. I don't know. That's tough because I haven't seen Johnny Beck, really be tested, like I've seen John Ryder. But yeah, man, that Kazakhstan style, he got Triple G's approval, so that goes a long ways, bro. I wouldn't call him
Yeah.
basic.
Well, I don't see nothing special about him. He's obviously a good fighter. He has a lot of power. He's tricky. He's got a good control of range. He plants his feet well and is able to transition from a planted powerful puncher fighter to one that's more on the balls of his feet to be able to cover ground and hop in to take advantage of those good reflexes of his and capitalize on whatever defensive flaws you have. Um, but he's also a fighter that hasn't really faced uh, those kind of fighters like perhaps Adames. We know that 160 right now is going through a difficult time where a lot of the more notable names have moved up or down into different weight classes. I think Erislandy Lara still has a belt at 160 or interim belt, but they're fighters from before that haven't been heard of for a while, or they're newer fighters that are undefeated, but their last names are foreign to us, so we tend to discredit them or say, oh well, who are they? I actually think those are great opportunities to to for these fighters to just fight each other because they don't know each other. They haven't heard the rumors about who they are, so they're more willing to step in there and make a name for themselves. I think if moved correctly, 160 could be a very exciting division. Just because we don't know them right now doesn't mean we won't or shouldn't get to acquaint ourselves with them. So 160, yeah, I think Adam Carola is the man right there. Then of course Adames would be right after that. But nonetheless, homie Ricky, I guess what I'm trying to say is we can now include Adam Canolai as one of those fighters that is speaking ridiculously, even though he has a better shot at fighting Canelo than, let's say, somebody like uh, Terrence Crawford, because at least he's closer to 168 than that other fighter right there. And I'm sure
That's
tomorrow's
a good.
news are also going to change.
That's a good point. I would say that you would also mention Elijah Garcia. The one that had the opener versus on the Canelo Jermel Charlo undercard when he fought Ando Resendez.
Yeah.
Elijah Garcia's top 10, top 5 at middleweight, as well as he should. Man, that performance was, for 20 years old, that kid's wise beyond his years. So I'm really looking forward to Elijah Garcia and seeing when he's able to. I had always been a big fan of him, but I thought he was going to lose against Armando Resendez. I thought, Manny Robles, they were going to instill a good game plan, but boy, because that kid he hits hard. He's lengthy. He's willing to sit there in the pocket and exchange. Yeah, man. But middleweight, they had an opportunity, right? When Johnny Beck fought that Italiano, but he made light work of him. And when you said that these guys were willing to fight each other and make a name, well, the guy had an opportunity to make himself a name on that unification bout. And that's how I know the middleweight division right now is pretty suspect. But yeah, Johnny Beck does have a pretty good shot of getting into the Canelo sweepstakes. But to that point, you heard about the Jaime Munguia rumor versus Canelo?
Yeah. The way that they're spinning it makes sense.
I like it.
I like it. I mean, why not? I mean, Munguia it's a way better fight than Terrence Crawford.
He's actually at 168 fighter. He had an
Yep.
amazing fight with Sergey Derenchenko. I thought, Devichenko beat him, but that was still an amazing fight. Wow, that was a good fight. Fuck, dude, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think Jaime is kind of like, I wouldn't call him elite, but he's always very fan-friendly and action-packed. I would give Canelo, obviously, the ability to knock him out, but if Jaime can somehow make it interesting, let his hands go and not just be afraid of the moment, and give Canelo too much respect, I think we're gonna get a Mexican, standoff. Is gonna be a great fight. And then obviously there's always an epic buildup that Oscar De La Hoya can really express himself towards Canelo and just be like, I don't know, whatever headlines that he wants to create. I would pop up with like a lot of ideas, but I don't know if Oscar wants to antagonize Canelo. I mean, he's been doing it on every damn near interview, shitting all over what Canelo has been doing up to this point. But yeah, no, I think that would be a good fight. Obviously, everybody wants to watch David Benavidez versus Canelo. And to that point, you know, if David were to knock out Demetrius Andrade, which I don't think will happen, but if he's able to, I mean, you're the front runner to the Canelo fight over a Terrence Crawford, over Johnny Beck, over Jaime Munguia. So, you know, the ball's in fucking David Benavidez' court. You know what I mean? What he's able to do or not do, it's gonna determine whether who Canelo fights next. So, you know, I don't know, man. Obviously, like I said, everybody wants to watch that fight, but the fact that David couldn't knock out or knock down Caleb Plant, you know, that was very telling.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, there is a lot of news, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors, and a lot of triangular theories that we can go based everything that we know. But you know, we just gotta let the cards play out and see, you know, who does what. But yeah, man.
Yeah. Mr. Vargas says, I watched Johnny Beck's last fight on ESPN. Tough fighter because of his punch. Absolutely. WBO champ. He picked up the WBO and he
The
already
IBF.
had, yeah. So now he holds two,
Yeah.
two belts. So yeah, he's definitely, he's brave. Oh, but homie Ricky, just to wrap up this live, because you know I am a 44-year-old man that does have responsibilities. I wake up in the wee hours of the morning. But I did want to remind you, especially since you guys just addressed this last night, and because I had already had that what I would consider epic, groundbreaking reporting on the importance of and the history of women's boxing at 12 rounds, 3 minutes each. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, we addressed it in what I consider to be an under rated exhibition of our investigative abilities, both you and I. Um, I would be remiss if I did not remind you and our beloved listeners that tomorrow, the 27th of October, current year 2023, on Friday, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, Amanda Serrano is going to be fighting Danila Ramos for a 12 round, 3 minute each featherweight championship clash in Florida, where three belts, the WBA, IBF, and WBO, will be put on the line. It is tomorrow, not on Saturday. One of those very rare occasions that we have an epic uh, fight scheduled. And the fight is good. There's good fighters on that undercard. Tomorrow, Miss Amanda Serrano, seven weight champion, is going to be defending three over belts against an Argentinian by Danila Ramos. If you guys don't know it already, and I'm sure you guys do, Argentinian boxers are tough as nails, uh, galvanized nails, and they are tough. So let's not forget to take some time to admire the women's side of boxing. I know that perhaps some of our listeners may not be very well acquainted with women's boxing. Perhaps they don't yet appreciate it. But I assure you, if you watch Amanda Serrano, you will love women's boxing. If you put her in there with the rugged and tough as nails Argentinian, that's going to make for a violent clash. That's going to be a good one tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you make time in your busy lives to admire how some of these women can have the same kind of heart and the same kind of skill set as men, uh, and just watch them beat each other to a pulp. Homie Ricky, you're a good individual. Mr. Vince Vargas, you're a great listener of ours. I appreciate both of you. I miss Drew. One of these days, hopefully, he can hop on there and forgive me for pointing out strongly the disagreements that I have with the guy. But the homie Ricky, I hope we have an opportunity to get together and talk about these fights. Hopefully, after we watch these women beat themselves to a pulp. But if not, it's always a pleasure. And let's do it again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We'll probably do it on Sunday. Again, tomorrow I have a little bit of plans that are gonna spill over to the night. So I don't think I'll have time to hop on. But for sure it's for Sundays, man. But yeah, man, have a good night, guys. It was nice chopping it up and just shooting the shit, talking boxing and the legend or the shortcomings of Jorge Linares, Mr. Vince, have a good night. Speed. Till the next time, brother.
Good night, sir.
Night.